Chapter 891. Qin Yining laughed straightforwardly. Hey, what's there to feel wronged about? What's the point of separating our family so clearly? No matter who's right or wrong, it's still my fault as a junior. I'll go apologize to him later. Yao Chengu choked. He secretly thought that this family Qin father and daughter both spoke in such a manner. Qin Yining's words were actually the simplest principle of the world. No matter what family it was, as long as the younger generation had a conflict with the elder, the younger generation would be the one to be criticized. He had also experienced this when he was young, but now the tables had turned and he was the elder. Yao Chengu's mind raced. With a face full of admiration and pity, he complimented, as expected of a young lady from a large family. The daughter of Wise Pan and is indeed extraordinary. Qin Huaiyuan laughed and said that he didn't dare. Pang Xiao, on the other hand, could tell that Yao Chengu's words were not quite right. From the look in his grandfather's eyes, could it be that he deliberately mentioned the words, Wise Pan in? One had to know that back then, it was precisely because of Qin Huaiyuan's plan to sow discord that the Emperor of Northern Ji had used against him that Wise Pan and became famous. Pang Xiao was extremely intelligent. How could he not understand the hidden meaning in everyone's words just now? Sister, he was willing to suffer for the sake of the harmony of the family, but he couldn't play dumb. He immediately said, I'll go with them. I'll also kowtow to the old madam. Although he said kowtow, his expression clearly indicated that if the Yao clan did anything wrong, he would be on the side. He wasn't afraid that Qin Yining would be wronged again. Madame Ma and the Sun clan were very straightforward and didn't have such meticulous thoughts. Madame Ma was even more happy. The family didn't completely fall out with each other. It was all thanks to Sister Yi's willingness to compromise. In this way, Qin Huaiyuan went into the room to inform the old madam. Then, he and the Sun clan took the servants and accompanied Qin Yining and Yao Chengu to the guest courtyard. They invited the Yao clan back to the front hall for the reunion banquet. Some things would only be tormented when they were in a dilemma. Once they made a decision, they would be in a good mood. Although Qin Yining was on the way to see the Yao clan, he was thinking about what the two children would eat at the banquet later. Soon, they arrived at the door of the guest courtyard. A servant was guarding the door. When she saw Qin Huaiyuan and the Sun clan coming, she hurriedly bowed respectfully and looked a bit nervous. Old Madam Yao, old madam, old Master Yao, old madam, get up. What's wrong? Qin Huaiyuan could tell that something was wrong with the old woman's expression. The servant glanced at Yao Chengu and Madame Ma hesitantly and whispered, It's nothing. It's just that it's not quiet inside. It's not quiet? Qin Huaiyuan was puzzled. Yao Chengu and Madame Ma's hearts skipped a beat. Was the Yao clan making trouble again when they weren't here? They hurriedly entered the courtyard. As soon as they stepped on the clean tiles in the courtyard, they heard screams, curses, and smashing sounds coming from the wing room. What are you? Whose dogs are you? How dare you not let me eat? It's not that we don't let you eat. It's old Master Yao's order. Without his order, how can we let you eat? How about you endure for a while? When old Master Yao comes back and has orders, we will immediately prepare food for you. Is that okay? Bah, bullshit. I think you were sent by that little bitch to torture me. That bitch holds a grudge, and I exposed her shortcomings. Now she wants to harm me like this. Do you think I don't know my father? He loves me the most. He said that he punished me by making me kneel and not letting me eat. It's just empty talk. When did he ever let me go hungry? Only you two dogs don't know anything. Just wait. When my son comes, I will take your heads and kick them like balls. Oh, old Madam Yao, please calm down. With a crash, some unknown wooden object was smashed, followed by the sound of broken porcelain, crashing and clanking, causing the few people in front of the door to stop in their tracks. Qin Huaiyuan and the Sun clan's faces immediately darkened. Pang Xiao held Qin Yining with one hand and didn't allow her to take a step forward. She clenched her fists so hard that they made cracking sounds. Poor Sister Yi. She had been compromising. He didn't expect that his good mother would criticize her like this behind her back. Madame Ma's face was livid. She raised her foot and was about to kick the door, but Yao Chengu beat her to it. Shut up. Yao Chengu pushed open the door and came face to face with Yao Shi standing on a thick mattress. Her hands were holding a blue and white porcelain vase high up in the air, about to smash it. The floor was covered in broken pieces, and the chair and table had been overturned. It was clear just how much trouble she had caused. The two servants who were ordered to watch Yao Clan had already hidden in the corner and were trembling. Yao Shi looked at the people that had come to the door and finally stopped what she was doing. She threw the porcelain bottle to the ground, and there was another crashing sound. "Father, these two dogs of family Qin made things difficult for me. They slap." Yao Chengu slapped Yao Clan's face hard. Yao Clan was stunned on the spot. She bit her tongue, and a trace of blood came out of the corner of her mouth. "You evil creature, kneel down." Yao Clan's tears were shining. She bit her lips and whimpered to avoid the broken porcelain. Yao Chengu scolded. "Why did I punish you? It seems like you didn't use your brain at all." "Whoa, I didn't do anything wrong. You still dare to talk back. You want to make trouble? Fine, fine, fine. I'll leave this place for you. When we go to Shiyu, this place will be left for you. You can do whatever you want." Yao Chengu was so angry that his hands trembled. He angrily turned around and strode away. He tripped and almost fell on the broken porcelain on the floor. Pang Xiao hurriedly supported Yao Chengu and led the old man out of the messy room. Yao Clan fell on the cushion and sobbed. She was terrified, listening to Yao Chengu's words. They were going to leave her alone and not take her to Shiyu? Yao Clan was really frightened by Yao Chengu's words. She hurriedly got up, walked around the broken porcelain vase on the floor, and pulled Yao Chengu to the door. Father, I know I was wrong. I won't do it again." Yao Chengu looked at Yao Clan's swollen cheeks, blood seeping from the corner of her mouth, and tears and snot all over her face. In the end, he still felt distressed. But compared to their future life and death, which was more important, Yao Chengu steeled his heart and didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at Qin Huaiyuan questioningly. Qin Huaiyuan had a smile on his face, but his aura was imposing. It was as if this wasn't an ordinary room of the family Qin, but the morning court in the Golden Imperial Palace. No matter how shrewd Yao Chengu was, he had never seen Qin Huaiyuan with such an imposing manner. He became more and more nervous. This time, it was completely over. Yu Ping's scolding was so unpleasant that the whole family had heard it behind their backs. Looking at Qin Huaiyuan's expression, and then looking at Madame Sun's expression, who looked as if she wanted to eat someone alive, could it be that all their efforts had been for naught? "Since we've discussed it, let's go to the banquet." Qin Huaiyuan smiled and took the lead in calling the Sun clan to walk in front. Go to the banquet? It was already like this. Who would still be able to eat? Yao Chengu was very nervous. In order to survive, they had to go to Siya, but they really went to Siya. He was really afraid that Qin Huaiyuan would find a way to kill him. Qin Yining and Pang Xiao supported Mrs. Ma on both sides. At this time, Mrs. Ma was so angry that she was about to cry. Qin Yining hurriedly comforted her. "Grandma, don't take it to heart. The old madam must be hungry." Mrs. Ma sobbed, and 2 lines of salty tears flowed down her face. She raised her old hand and wiped her face. Choking, she said, "Lassie, Okay, Grandma, don't be sad. It's nothing." The more Qin Yining persuaded, the more upset Mrs. Ma became. They walked in front, and Yao Chengu followed behind Mrs. Ma with his hands behind his back. Only the Yao clan was crying and covering their faces as they walked toward the reception hall where the banquet was held. The banquet was already prepared in the reception hall. Because it was a special reunion banquet, there was no need to pay attention to the rules of having so many seats. Old Madam asked the screen to be removed, and 3 tables were set up in the hall. At this time, the family Qin members, old and young, were all present. Seeing Qin Yining and Pang Xiao coming back from afar, Brother Zhao and Brother Han ran over happily with their short legs. Mother, Daddy, Brother Han wants to be carried." The children's voices were sweet and childish, making the tense atmosphere in the group relax. Pang Xiao and Qin Yining each carried the 2 little guys. Qin Yining smiled and shook Brother Zhao. "Oh, my baby brother, Zhao, seems to have grown a little." "Mother." Brother Zhao hugged Qin Yining's neck and leaned his face against Mrs. Ma, who was close to him. Great-grandma. Ah, good child, good child. Mrs. Ma was very sad and immediately burst into tears. Brother Zhao was shocked and used his small hands to wipe away Mrs. Ma's tears. He was also about to cry. Great-grandma, don't cry. Great-grandma isn't crying. Great-grandma is happy. Oh, my good grandson, let great-grandma hug you. Mrs. Ma hurriedly wiped her face with her sleeves and held back her tears. She smiled and took Brother Zhao into her arms. He was such a good child who looked so much like Pang Zhao's child. Why did the Yao clan always doubt his bloodline, hate the two brothers, and be so mean to the Qin clan? Why did she not understand the daughter she raised more and more? Brother Han blinked his big eyes curiously and poked his small head out of Pang Zhao's arms. Great-grandma. Ah, great-grandma is here. Great-grandma is happy? Why do you adults cry when you're unhappy and cry when you're happy? For a moment, Mrs. Ma didn't know how to answer. Brother Han opened his small hands and said to Qin Huayan, Grandfather, hug. Grandmother, Brother Han wants to be hugged. Qin Huayuan's mood improved a lot. He took Brother Han, who was asking for hugs everywhere, and said with a smile, Quickly go inside. At this time, the family Qin people had already stood up and greeted them with a smile. Everyone had heard about what happened in the Fu yesterday, but this was the chief branch's private matter. Everyone tacitly expressed respect and didn't talk about it. Now, they saw that Yao Qinggu's expression was normal, but Mrs. Ma and the Yao clan had cried. The Yao clan's face was also suspiciously swollen. Everyone was puzzled, but because of their upbringing, they didn't show it. Qin Huayan politely led Old Master Yao and Mrs. Ma to sit next to the old madam. Chapter 892. Qin Huayan, second Old Master, and third Old Master raise their cups together. It's rare for our family to be able to reunite. Let us three brothers toast to Mother and the two elders. Old Madam's hair was already silvery white. She was wearing a tea-gold gown with a gray mouse fur collar, which made her complexion look a bit more rosy. Old Madam smiled and nodded repeatedly. Good, good. She raised her cup and clinked it with Yao Qinggu and Madam Ma. After the elders drank together, Qin Yu, Qin Han, and the other men of the family Qin also began to take turns toasting. The women were even more lively as they toasted each other. The scene became lively. The Yao clan was next to the Sun clan, so the women of the family Qin were all around her. At this moment, she was still feeling wronged, and the expression on her face was very ugly. Qin Yining stood up with a smile and toasted the Yao clan. Old Madam, your daughter-in-law toasts you. Yao clan raised her head and saw Qin Yining's smiling face. She felt depressed and panicked in her heart. Her face was swollen from a slap. This lowly wench must have come to watch the show. Yao clan thought of this, so she didn't raise her wine cup. Qin Yining's eyes darkened a bit. Under Yao Qinggu's gaze, which seemed to be watching a good show, he smiled and joked. Old Madam, you're not still angry with me, are you? You see, my cloak and skirt have been destroyed. You can take it as a punishment. As the saying goes, if you don't have a tongue, you won't touch your teeth. Your daughter-in-law is young and ignorant. Old Madam, you've walked on more bridges than I have. You're a great person and don't mind my transgressions. Please forgive me. Her tone was sweet and naive, like a little girl acting coquettishly with her elders. The people around her who didn't know the inside story couldn't help but laugh. Yao clan was just about to scold back when she felt someone staring at her. As soon as she raised her head, she saw Yao Qinggu's eyes full of warning. Thinking of what Yao Qinggu said just now, it seemed that he really had made up his mind to keep her. Yao clan's anger was replaced by fear again. She unconsciously raised her wine cup and toasted with Qin Yining. Yao Qinggu saw that Yao clan finally learned their lesson this time. He quietly sighed in relief and looked at Qin Huayan nervously, and also took the initiative to raise his wine cup. His intention to take the initiative to apologize was too obvious. Qin Huayuan raised his glass with both hands and clinked it against Yao Qinggu's. He smiled and said, Old Master Yao, just as Sister Yi said just now, there's always a time when the tongue doesn't touch the teeth. No matter what, we're still family. Yao Qinggu smiled and nodded repeatedly. Qin Huayuan stood up and raised his wine cup, saying, "Today, we're able to reunite as a family. How many twists and turns have we gone through? I'm sure everyone has an account in their hearts. Here, I propose that we all drink together. Eldest brother, I toast you. Eldest uncle, nephew toast you. Second master, third master, Qin Han, Qin Yu, the Sun clan, second madam, Han's second young mistress, and Qin Huaining all stood up and drank a cup of wine together." Qin Huayuan suddenly sighed with emotion. The members of the Qin clan who are gathered here today have all gone through near-death experiences. When this place was still dying, the situation in the imperial court was treacherous, and Qin's mansion became a target several times. That bloody incident made us lose a lot of family members. Qin Huan turned to Yao Qinggu and Madame Ma, saying, old madam, you two may not know that at that time, our family Qin was implicated in the matter in the imperial court. More than half of our family members were killed. The blood that flowed out that day gathered into a stream and dyed the ground of Qin's mansion red. Half of Qin's mansion was burned down by fire. The Qin's mansion where we are now was renovated by Sister Yi in private with her own money. Yao Qinggu and Madame Ma's hearts were particularly heavy. That day, Qin's mansion was involved in such a dispute, and blood flowed like a river in the mansion. But who could say that the tragedy of Qin's mansion was not the future of their masters? If they stayed here, sooner or later, they would walk the same path as Qin's mansion. Yao Qinggu cherished the opportunity to go to Shiyu with his family Qin more than now. Qin Huayuan continued. After that, family Qin moved to the capital and experienced another bumpy experience. Because of my mistake, Qin's mansion was targeted again. That day, I narrowly escaped death in the north. The hardships I went through are indescribable. If Sister E hadn't arranged for someone to rescue me in time, I'm afraid I would have died. Not only did I lose my life, but I also implicated my family members. Later, our Qin's mansion was able to safely leave the capital. Sister E stayed behind and secretly sent everyone here out. Qin Huayuan's voice suddenly choked when he said this. When he looked at Qin Yining, his eyes seemed to be filled with tears. Sister E, you were a good child. When I wasn't here, you helped your second uncle and third uncle a lot. Many things in the family also depended on you. You protected our family for me and almost sacrificed yourself several times. You sacrificed a lot, whether it was money or energy. You did so many things in silence. I am grateful to you, but I feel sorry for you. Qin Yining's eyes immediately became moist. She quickly stood up and shook her head. Father, why are you saying this? We are a family. Why do you have to say this? Qin Huayuan shook his head and walked to Qin Yining's side with a glass of wine in his hand. He patted her on the shoulder and turned to say to everyone present, this time, the desert oasis that we're all moving to was discovered by Sister E in the early years after she was kidnapped by the Tatar Eugene Khan. That day, when I was taken to the oasis by Sister Yi's subordinate, the Hall Master of the Qingtian Alliance, I also heard about what happened at Shiyu. Sister E really had a narrow escape from death that day. But fortunately, everything turned out well. Now, Sister E left people there to manage it. The people there still believe that Sister E is a goddess bestowed to them by the heavens, and that Jishi is the real king there. So, after our family moved there, we were able to live a noble life. It was all thanks to the karma between Sister E and Jishi. When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but look at Qin Yining with curiosity and admiration. What she had experienced was far beyond all the other women. Her ability was outstanding, and many men couldn't even compare to her. Qin Huayuan patted Qin Yining's shoulder and said, this time, all of us are going to move away. Sister E and Jishi have to bear all the dangers and hold up the sky for us. And we're going to live a peaceful life, but we still have to be under the shadow of these two children. As a father, I am incompetent. I can't protect my own child, and instead put her in danger time and time again. Whether it was when Sister E was almost caught by the demon empress to eat meat in the Dain dynasty, or when she was trapped in the palace in the Dezhou dynasty and was locked in the Sai and palace by the Empress Dowager, who didn't give her food or water and wanted to starve her to death. Qin Huaiyuan's tone was too sorrowful, and tears fell down. Everyone present couldn't help but shed tears. Brother Zhao and Brother Han were affected by the atmosphere, and they held their small mouths and sobbed. The Sun Clan and Second Madam each hugged and comforted them, but their tears fell more fiercely than the children. My daughter had a hard life. When she was just born, she was taken away and left in the mountains. She was adopted by a kind person, and her life was saved. When she was young, she suffered a lot. When she was 8, she lost her family. In order to avoid the chaos of war, she went to the mountains alone. Qin Huaiyuan shook his head and closed his eyes. An 8-year-old child, only 8 years old, she survived alone, and when she returned home, she was called a barbarian. As a father, I was muddle-headed. I couldn't protect her from the beginning. She was burdened by me, and now she sacrificed herself for everyone's safety. Qin Huaiyuan's face was covered in tears, and he choked with sobs. The reception hall was filled with sobs. Qin Yining wiped his tears and hurriedly supported Qin Huaiyuan's arm. "Father, why are you saying these things? It's all in the past." "That's right, it's all in the past. You're lucky, and you've endured all the hardships. You're generous, and you've forgotten how much you've suffered. But as a father, I can't forget. You were taken away when you were an infant, and in the end, you were called a barbarian. All of this was caused by me, but you had to bear the infamy. Later, you were kidnapped by the Khan of Inari, and that woman wanted to kill you. You escaped with great difficulty, but there were still people who doubted your chastity. What did you do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. You suffered so much, but there were still people who misunderstood you and scolded you. All of this was caused by your father's incompetence and dereliction of duty. I feel terrible, and I feel terrible when I hear people scolding you." Qin Huaiyuan had always been steady, and it was rare for him to reveal such emotions. He kept all of his worries in his heart. He was extremely intelligent, and when he encountered difficulties, he could always find the most appropriate way to solve them. But the more he was like this, the more he restrained himself, and the more he suppressed his emotions. Once it burst out, such intense emotions could infect everyone. Everyone in the Qin family was shedding tears. Even Yao Qinggu, who had a heart of stone, had tears brimming in his eyes. Dowager Duchess and Qin Huaining were sobbing uncontrollably. Qin Huaining walked to Qin Yining's side and took the initiative to hold her hand. The corners of his lips quivered for a long time, and he said in a hoarse voice, "I'm sorry." Qin Yining shook her head. There was a smile on her face, but her tears kept flowing. "It's okay, it's not your fault." Qin Huaining looked at Qin Yining's teary eyes and couldn't help but hug Qin Yining. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have treated you like that day. I knew long ago that I was wrong." Qin Yining smiled and hugged Qin Huaining back. "It's okay. I didn't blame you long ago. If that situation had happened to me back then, I would also have felt a sense of crisis. Moreover, it's best to know that you're wrong and change for the better. In the future, as long as you're well, I will." At that time, bandits broke into our house. Qin Yining shook her head and didn't let Qin Huaining mention what happened back then. It was enough that she felt guilty in her heart. Chapter 893. Qin Huaining shook his head with a smile. No. One who survives a great disaster is bound to have good fortune in the future. Even God couldn't take you away when you were a child. You will be safe in the future. In the future, you will be filial to father and mother. I will get married. Qin Yining burst out laughing at Qin Huaining's words, but tears fell down like beads from a broken necklace. Seeing Qin Yining and Qin Huaining like this, Qin Huaiyuan was relieved. He wiped the tears on his face and said, "Although we are in trouble now, as long as the whole family can get together and work together, we will be able to get through it, just like us in the past. The reason why I'm saying all this today is not for anything else. After Shiyu, we may never set foot on this land again. At that time, we'll only have each other left. So, We have to unite even more to survive better. Come on, old Master Yao, old Madam, let's toast and drink together. Yao Chingu and Mrs. Ma were moved to tears by this scene. At this time, they naturally stood up. After Yao Chingu and Qin Huayuan drank this cup of wine, their hanging hearts were completely relieved. Qin Huayuan's words stirred up everyone's emotions and made the family Qin united. At the same time, he also expressed his views. Although the family Qin didn't like what the Yao clan did, Qin Huayuan at least wanted to unite everyone. This was a safe signal for Yao Chingu, which made him relax all his vigilance. Today's reunion banquet was also a farewell banquet. The whole family gathered together, toasted each other, and confided in each other. Many small problems in the past were solved today. Qin Yining and Pang Xiao were moved. At the same time, they had to admire Qin Huayuan's means. In the future, the in-laws would be more united. At Xia in the future, at least for a few years, there would not be a scattered situation. A few days after the banquet, the family was surprisingly united. However, the Sun clan had cried a few times with Qin Yining. She always thought that Qin Yining and Pang Xiao had something to do and would go later. She didn't expect that this time it might be a farewell. Qin Yining comforted the Sun clan for a long time. Pang Xiao also repeatedly promised to protect Qin Yining. Later, Madame Zheng brought the women of the Sun clan and rushed over. The Sun clan's attention was then diverted. Shengchang's 7th year, 28th of winter. Under Pang Xiao's arrangement, Qin Huiyan led all of the family Qin, Sun family, and Yao family's relatives and servants to secretly leave the Qin manor in batches. Under the appropriate arrangements, they left the docks on a junk ship, beginning the journey of the family Qin to call the wind and summon the rain during the sunset. However, Qin Yining couldn't even go to the docks to see them off. She and Pang Xiao were too big a target. Who knew how many pairs of eyes were watching them? With great difficulty, Pang Xiao used all kinds of methods to secretly send the family out in batches. She couldn't let her family be in danger again because of her reluctance. However, even if Qin Yining wasn't disheartened enough to think that this separation would be a life-and-death separation, the pain of separation made her sullen for a few days. Pang Xiao knew that Qin Yining wasn't happy. Other than attentively accompanying her, he had no other choice. Therefore, he went to the barracks to patrol during the day and tried his best to rush back as soon as possible in the afternoon. In any case, this made Qin Yining's mood much better. On the 3rd day of the 12th lunar month, Master Zhong came to the Qin manor early in the morning. Qin Yining and Pang Xiao just got up and rushed to the front hall without eating breakfast. Master Zhong smiled and said, "Princess Consort, there's news from Huichuan County." Qin Yining said in surprise, "So fast?" "Yes, it's inconvenient for Hall Master Liao and Hall Master Qiao to come back, so they arranged for a trusted subordinate to rush over to deliver the news." "Where is this person?" "Princess Consort, don't be anxious. I brought him here. He's just outside the room." Qin Yining's eyes lit up. He hurriedly ordered, "Quickly invite him in." Ji curtsied and quickly went out to invite the person. Bing Tang brought Lian Xiaozhou to prepare tea and snacks. On the day of Qin Huayuan's departure, these 3 people knelt in front of Qin Yining and refused to go to Xiyu. Qiu Lu and Xianyan also wanted to follow suit. However, Qin Yining entrusted the 2 children to them, and they had no choice but to leave. Now, all the servants in the manor had left. Bing Tang, Jian, and Lian Xiaozhou had more things to do. Not long after, Jian led a young man with a medium build into the room. This young man was wearing a grayish-blue cloth jacket and a felt hat. He was dressed like a manservant. When he saw Qin Yining and Pang Xiao, he bowed respectfully and said, "Greetings, Alliance Master." "Greetings, Wang Yi." Pang Xiao smiled and waved his hand. "There's no need to be so polite." Qin Yining also smiled and said, "Take a seat. We're all brothers, and there are no outsiders. There's no need to be so formal." "Yes, thank you, Alliance Master." The young man sat down next to Master Zhong. Qin Yining first asked him to eat tea and snacks. The young man didn't stand on ceremony and finished 2 plates of snacks in a few bites. He then gulped down a large pot of hot tea. Perhaps it was because of the silence in the room, but he also realized that his behavior was a bit too rude. He scratched his head and laughed. Alliance Master, you must be joking. What are you talking about? This brother looks familiar. How should I address you? My name is Meng Qin. I've always been following home Master Qiao. In the past, I even followed Alliance Master to escort your majesty back to the palace. No wonder I thought you looked so familiar. Qin Yining smiled and said, since we're all brothers, I won't beat around the bush. Meng Qin, what news did home Master Liao ask you to bring me? Oh, right. Meng Qin sat up straight and said seriously, it's like this. A few days ago, Guandahu and Liu Ban suddenly started contacting home Master Liao. Home Master Liao and home Master Qiao felt that something was amiss, so they kept an eye on it. These two had followed home Master Liao's wife to die in the desert. How could they come back from the dead? We all felt that it was very strange. Home Master Liao didn't trust the two of them at all. He directly rejected their proposal of discussing a grand plan. However, Home Master Liao and Home Master Qiao had a trick up their sleeves. Our Qingtian alliance didn't have any relationship with the two of them, but we still managed to get reliable information out of them. Guess what? It's the money that the incapable ruler of Dian hid, and it's now in Huichuan County. No wonder that old guy wanted to become the county magistrate of Huichuan County. Pang Xiao and Qin Yining's hearts skipped a beat at the same time. However, they still looked indifferent and didn't show any abnormalities. Qin Yining smiled and asked, why did the treasure go all the way to Huichuan County? That's right. Hall Master Liao was also puzzled. Later, he spent a lot of effort to investigate and found out that Mrs. Liao had taken Guandahu and Liu Ban to hide the treasure. Guess how they hid it? Back then, Your Majesty wanted to build the Imperial Mausoleum. Coincidentally, the stone was quarried from the south. The place where Mrs. Liao hid the treasure happened to be nearby. She thought of a way and hid the treasure in the stone bricks of the Imperial Mausoleum. Just like that, the treasure was transported out without anyone knowing. Originally, they thought that the treasure was hidden in the stone. As long as they thought of a way to buy or steal the stone, or even rob it, they could easily avoid all the checkpoints. However, they didn't expect that Mrs. Liao and the two bastards would be caught with you. The two of them and Mrs. Liao were thrown into the desert. They didn't tell home Master Liao in detail how they survived. Anyway, Mrs. Liao was dead. Home Master Liao actually analyzed it with home Master Qiao in private. They might have used Mrs. Liao as food in the desert. Later, the two bastards kept thinking of ways to go to Huichuan County to get the stone back. The problem was that the construction in Huichuan County had stopped, and the original county magistrate was also fired. Moreover, the stones looked the same on the outside, and they were all piled up together. If they didn't use any tricks, they wouldn't be able to tell which stone was the problem with the naked eye. Recently, they heard that the war had stopped, and Your Majesty wanted to continue building the Imperial Mausoleum. The two of them came up with this idea. As long as they hired the officials in Huichuan County, they would have a way to find the stone that hid the treasure. Otherwise, if they were late, wouldn't it be easy for the treasure to be exposed? Qin Yining and Pang Xiao were shocked. If it weren't for the inside story, who would have thought that Mrs. Liao had used such a method to transport the treasure under Li Qitian's nose without anyone noticing? What did Hall Leader Liao say? Qin Yining didn't say his own thoughts, but patiently asked Meng Qin. Meng Qin smiled and said, Hall Leader Liao said that the treasure couldn't be obtained by them. The two of them aren't good people, and of course, they couldn't be exposed to Your Majesty. Hall Leader Liao said that Your Majesty is so troublesome even though he doesn't have money. If he has money, who knows what he will do? He spent so much money to build the Imperial Mausoleum, and he didn't even think about what the people were eating. Meng Qin said, and her smile gradually faded. He didn't forget the original intention of the Qingtian alliance. Therefore, when he saw the emperor who didn't care if the people were hungry for his Imperial Mausoleum, he was also angry. However, because the person sitting in front of him was a high-ranking official in the imperial court, he didn't complain. Qin Yining knew the thoughts of most of the people in the alliance, so he didn't say much. After thanking Meng Qin, He asked Ji Yun to arrange a place for Meng Qin and order people to prepare food for her. You go rest first. I'll think about what to do about this matter. If there's anything else, I'll have to trouble you. Meng Qin grinned, scratched the back of her head, and said shyly, If there's anything, just tell me. Hall Leader Qiao and Hall Leader Liao said that I'll listen to you. Qin Yining nodded with a smile, and let Ji Yun take this honest young man to rest. When they walked away, Master Zhong breathed a sigh of relief and murmured, I didn't expect the treasure to be transported to Huichuan County in such a way. That Mrs. Liao can be considered a person. Chapter 894. Pang Xiao pondered for a long time and shook his head. This matter isn't easy to deal with. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack to find an abnormal stone brick among a large number of stones. It's not only difficult for us, but it's also difficult for Guandahu and Luban. Even if they become county magistrates, they still have to check the stones one by one. After all, the transportation may not be done by their own people. If it's done by their own people and they know the general direction, it'll be better. Yes, Mrs. Liao and the others didn't want this batch of treasure to be transported to Huichuan County. It's just that they didn't expect Wuda Golden Khan to suddenly intervene and kidnap the people. Master Zhong said they contacted Hall Master Liao because they don't have enough people. This matter is really difficult to deal with. It's difficult to find stones. What's more difficult is that this matter must be carried out secretly. We can't let the people in the imperial court find out anything strange. Qin Yining frowned and looked at Pang Xiao. She said bluntly, If they report this matter to the heavens, His Majesty will do anything for the treasure. He can arrange for more people to search for the treasure. At that time, it will be easy to find the treasure. I'll say something disrespectful, but if this silver is taken by Your Majesty, I think not only you, but also Ji Lan will be in danger. The two of you are the most suspicious. If we don't get rid of you, how can Your Majesty be at ease? Qin Yining's words were very direct. He didn't mean to avoid Master Zhong. Pang Xiao smiled and understood Qin Yining's arrangement. He didn't refute it. Master Zhong's forehead was sweating, but he was only slightly afraid for a while before his eyes became firm. In the Dian dynasty, Duke Dinghua's Sun family had a miserable end. Duke Dinghua was an unyielding hero. In the early years, he worked hard for the Dian. Sun family was full of loyal officials, but in the end, what benefits did they get? For the sake of his own selfishness, the self-indulgent ruler did not care about ethics and morals. Looking at Pang Xiao, who was full of righteousness and awe-inspiring Master Zhong became more and more worried. He broke out in cold sweat and could not help but say, Wang Yi, you have to think of a way. You can't let that person get the treasure. Think about the princess consort and your family. The miserable state of Princess Consort's maternal grandfather's family was a good example. It's hard to conquer the world, but it's even harder to defend it. You have to be more careful. Pang Xiao was very satisfied with Master Zhong, and his heart was filled with joy. This old man had always been by Qin Yining's side with all his heart and soul. Back then, Qin Yining had saved his life, and he had indeed wholeheartedly repaid him. Pang Xiao admired such a loyal elder. You're right. I'll be more careful. When Qin Yining saw Pang Xiao like this, although he had made a decision long ago, he still felt a little sad when he thought about it now. You're all brothers who kowtowed to the ground. Back then, you agreed to overthrow the tyranny of Beiji and return a peaceful life to the people. Back then, on the battlefield, you trusted each other and trusted each other's backs. Why can't you do it now? Pang Xiao sighed and said, If Your Majesty had been content with a corner from the beginning and never had any hopes for the Dian, wouldn't it have been better? Qin Yining shook his head. Wang Yi, have you forgotten what the self-indulgent ruler of the Dian was like? In your heart, don't you think that the people of the Dian are also people? You're only doing it for the people. Yes, I'm doing it for the people. My belief has never changed. I've always wanted to give the people a peaceful and prosperous world. Now, he might even start another war. When he heard Pang Xiao's words, Master Zhong couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Such a loyal and righteous person was just like the old Duke of Dingwa. Who would have thought that he would gradually be forced to this point? He had been following Qin Yining for a long time, so he was the clearest about Pang Xiao and Qin Yining's experiences. Wang Yi, this old man has something to say. Wang Yi, please listen to this old man. Master Zhong is an old man by Sister Yi's side. Sister Yi trusts you the most, so you're one of us. If you have anything to say, Master Zhong, just say it. Yes, he was an old man by Qin Yining's side. Ever since he followed Qin Yining, everyone knew that he was on Qin Yining's side. This matter wasn't a secret. Even if he felt that it was dangerous now and wanted to take the opportunity to hide, there was no guarantee that when Li Qiqian targeted Pang Xiao, he would be treated as an accomplice and dealt with. The most taboo thing for people was to be a fence-sitter. Sometimes, if you wanted to benefit from both sides, you'd end up offending both sides. It was better to choose a side. Thinking of this, Master Zhong was even more certain of his previous decision. He bluntly said, Wang Yi, now that the world is unified, it's a unification that's rarely seen in 100 years. Even the Taitan in the north and the southern Yin in the south are no longer a threat. This can be considered one of His Majesty's achievements. But think about it carefully. In the 7 years since His Majesty stepped on the throne, what has he really done for the people? What His Majesty has done the most is consider how to stabilize his own country and how to expand Zhou's territory. Exorbitant taxes haven't been reduced, but corvée labor is getting more and more serious. His Majesty frequently sends troops to war, but His Majesty hasn't selected talents for the country, nor has he promoted any commercial or political policies to develop the economy. The Zhou is poor, but the people haven't seen His Majesty increase income and reduce expenditure. Instead, he's fixated on Dian's treasures and won't let go of them. He'll even take a bite out of a mosquito's leg if he sees one. Master Zhong's voice had the hoarseness of an old man, but he spoke neither too fast nor too slow. Every word he said was a gem, and it went straight to Qin Yining's heart. Master Zhong is right. Qin Yining smiled appreciatively, then turned to Pang Xiao and said with a smile, Wang Yi, I think you understand everything in your heart, but you're too righteous and are often bound by morality. Pang Xiao smiled bitterly. Some things were the bottom line in his heart, but reality would push him step by step, pushing that bottom line closer and closer. Qin Yining said, In this world, there has never been a rule that one must take the surname of another. When Beiji Zhou and Dian's Yuqi were in power, they were absurd and tyrannical, but there were people with lofty ideals who rose up and completely overthrew their tyrannical rule. If His Majesty can't be a good emperor who brings happiness to the people, and only cares about whether his throne is stable or not, and blindly abandons the country's industry, and uses the method of farmers guarding their yards to govern a country, then Zhou can't guarantee that it won't follow the same path as Beiji and Dian. Furthermore, he doesn't think about how to use people to make Zhou prosper, but he doesn't care about right or wrong, and kills meritorious officials for his own selfish reasons. Even if you and I stretch out our necks to be executed and follow His Majesty's wishes, it's just to protect the world and temporarily prevent war. But who can guarantee that in the future, there won't be people who can't stand his actions and overthrow him? Master Zhong also nodded in agreement. Wang Fei's words are reasonable. This old man also has the same thoughts. If we hand over 10,000 li of land and the people of the world to unknown people in the future, it's better to use Wang Ye's hands to resolve it now. Pang Xiao let out a long sigh. Forget it. Let me think about how to have a win-win solution. Seeing Pang Xiao like this, Zhong Dazhong couldn't help but sigh. There are all kinds of evaluations of Wang Yi in the world. You are the Zhou's people's god of war. You swept away tyranny for them and opened up new territory for them. You are also the Dian's people's nightmare. Back then, when you led the troops to attack, every time there was a battle report, we would tremble in fear. Thinking about what happened back then, Qin Yining and Master Zhong both sighed with emotion and found it just as funny. That's right. Whenever we hear about which city you conquered, which place you decapitated in public, or which place you massacred, We were so scared that we almost cried. But now that I think about it, Wang Yi is a truly benevolent person. Although it is the duty of a soldier to lead troops to war, and there are casualties on the battlefield, you have never harmed the people. Now that you have been forced to this point by Jin Shang, you still retain your benevolent heart. This is truly admirable. Head shopkeeper Zhong bowed sincerely. It is this old man's fortune to be able to follow your highness. Pang Xiao waved her hand and supported Master Zhong, saying, "Don't say that." Seeing that he had achieved his goal today, Qin Yining smiled and said, all right, we are all on the same side. There's no need to be so polite. I understand Master Zhong's thoughts. Since today's matter is out in the open, Master Zhong should just keep it in your heart. As the saying goes, before the troops and horses are mobilized, the provisions must be prepared first. We should also take stock of the profits from the fields, shops, and factories under my control and discuss how to operate them. Master Zhong was a smart person and immediately understood Qin Yining's intentions. If Pang Xiao had any decisions and wanted to take action, he would need to use money. If Pang Xiao told him first, he would be able to start preparing for it. However, the topic that the three of them were discussing today was, after all, treason and heresy. If it was spread out and people knew about it, it was hard to guarantee that Pang Xiao would not be criticized. His good reputation would also be ruined. Not to mention outsiders, if Pang Xiao's subordinates, the Southern Pacifying Army and the Tiger Army, misunderstood the prince and thought that he wanted to stir up trouble for his own selfish reasons, that would be the biggest fatal wound. Even if Qin Yining hadn't ordered him, he definitely wouldn't have said a word to anyone. Wang Fei and Wang Yi were willing to tell him everything before they returned to Jing. They trusted him so much. He could only repay them with loyalty. When Master Zhong bid farewell, he was the same as usual. His expression was not unusual, but if one looked closely, one could see that his eyes were brighter and more determined than usual. After Master Zhong walked away, Pang Xiao smiled and asked Qin Yining, "You told Master Zhong these words. Are you not afraid that he will spread it and ruin your plans?" Qin Yining smiled and shook his head. "He won't. He has been careful and conscientious when he works with me for the sake of loyalty. Now, no matter if it is loyalty or the future of his family, he knows what he is doing. These kinds of words, if you say it out of the blue, people need to believe it. Slandering an official of the court is a great crime. Slandering a prince of a different surname is an additional crime." Pang Xiao said, "That's true. Right now, even if I tell my subordinates that I want to cause trouble, they probably won't believe that I am doing it for myself. Sir Xie and Sir Su are so close, they won't believe it either." Chapter 895. Pang Xiao smiled. There were no outsiders in the room, so he naturally touched Qin Yining's face. "All right, now that we know where the treasure is, we have a goal. We can't let Jin Shang get the money. If we can't get it, Qing Tian Alliance can get it. If we can't get it ourselves, we'll give Qing Tian Alliance a push." Wang Yi is so generous. Qin Yining pursed her lips. "I'm very stingy. I can't bear to give the treasure to anyone. Although Qing Tian Alliance won't do anything big with the treasure, it's better that the treasure is in your hands." Pang Xiao was amused by her cute appearance and laughed again. He pulled Qin Yining around the table and sat on his muscular legs. The hairpin in Qin Yining's hair bun makes a light and crisp sound. "Wang Yi, we're in the front hall. You're being naughty again. What's there to be afraid of? No one will come without my permission. Besides, there are no elders in the house now. It's just the two of us. We can do whatever we want." Pang Xiao hugged her waist, which was so slender that it seemed as if he could wrap his arms around her waist with both hands. He kissed her ears and neck lightly, like a dragonfly skimming the water. Qin Yining shied away and laughed softly, but her mind was not idle. "Hey, Zhishi, you said last time that your majesty will arrange for an imperial envoy to supervise the construction of the imperial mausoleum, and a local magistrate will cooperate?" "Yes, why?" Qin Yining's big eyes turned and smiled. "Actually, I think that if there's no other way, We can work on the Imperial envoy who will supervise the construction of the Imperial Mausoleum. Ming Xiao burst into laughter when he heard this. You little girl, you're so crafty. Only me? Didn't you think of this? All right, we're telepathic. We think of the same thing. That's right. So if we're talking about cleverness, our Dai Fu is clever. Qin Yining twisted his body and patted Pang Zhao's face. Pang Xiao was amused by her and laughed. Huzi walked to the front of the courtyard and heard the laughter coming from inside. He couldn't help but laugh. He smiled and winked at Bing Tang, who was talking to Ji Yun in the courtyard. Hey, little Tang. When Ji Yun heard this, she covered her mouth and laughed. She gently closed the Bing Tang. Hurry up and go. I'm looking for you. Bing Tang blushed and rolled her eyes at Ji Yun. Then she ran to Huzi. How many times have I told you not to call me Little Candy? Then how about I call you Ming Ming? Huzi chuckled and gestured towards the room with his chin. Wang Yi and Wang Fei are in. That's right. What do you want to do? Bing Tang glared at her defensively. Wang Yi's laughter was too happy. They heard it clearly from outside. I'm warning you. If you dare to make fun of Wang Fei, I'll let you have a taste of being pricked by needles. Huzi laughed loudly. What are you afraid of? Wang Yi has been in a bad mood these days. Ever since the old madam's incident, the whole family set off again. Wang Yi saw that Wang Fei was depressed, and he was also listless. I haven't heard Wang Yi so happy in so many days. Now that he's finally happy, I can't be happier. That's right. Bing Tang had a bitter expression. Wang Fei is really pitiful. The whole family has only been reunited for a short while, and now they are forced to separate again. The two young masters have been pestering Wang Fei all day. Suddenly, the two of them are not by her side. Not just Wang Fei. Even us who are following them feel empty. It's as if something very important is suddenly missing. What's rare is that both Wang Yi and Wang Fei are in a good mood now. This is great news. Hey, I have a piece of good news to tell Wang Yi. What good news? Huzi made a face and ran towards the main room. I'm not telling you. Bing Tang stomped her foot. You rotten bastard. Huzi laughed out loud. She walked to the door and cleared her throat. She smiled and said, Wang Yi, come in. Yes. Huzi waited for a while before lifting the warm curtains and entering the room. Pang Xiao and Qin Yining were sitting on the left and right sides of the main seats in the middle. They were both holding teacups and drinking tea. Wang Yi, we just received news that Imperial Envoy Lu Tingzhong is about to arrive at the old capital. It should be within the next 2 or 3 days. Pang Xiao calculated. We finished the negotiations in October. It's been 2 months since Lu Tingzhong arrived. That's not too fast. Qin Yining smiled and said, no matter what, it's good that he's here. Shouldn't we prepare to go back to the capital? If we don't leave now, I don't know what kind of decree your majesty will issue next time. It's time to prepare. Pang Xiao thought for a moment. Sister, you should visit Boss Chiu often these days. She's taking care of her own child, and there's no female elder around. Brother, Yin should be 1 month old in a few days, right? Yes, I understand what you mean. I'll take care of Fei Shan and Brother Yin. Pang Xiao smiled and looked at Qin Yining. She nodded gently. Huzi stood on the side. She clearly felt that she was unnecessary. She quietly left. Pang Xiao and Qin Yining talked for a while. Then they went out and planned to go back to the military camp to make arrangements. Qin Yining called Bing Tang, Ji Yun, and Lin Xiaozhou. They took the prepared tonics, clothes, and a small hat and small clothes for Brother Yin and went to the Mu family. Brother Yin was still so cute, lying in Xiu Feishan's arms. He looked at Qin Yining with a pair of big black eyes. He even knew how to smile and wave his little hands. Xiu Feishan took good care of herself during the confinement period. Her whole body was plump. Her long hair was tied up casually. She wore a black forehead band with red jade. Seeing that her son liked it so much, she couldn't help but smile. He knows who's beautiful and who's ugly at such a young age. When he saw 2 old nannies, he refused to let them hold him. He only allowed them when he saw a beautiful one. It turned out that the wet nurses hired by the family were only young and healthy and had just given birth to a child. They didn't pay much attention to their appearance. But this kid was different. Among the wet nurses, there was one who looked slightly ordinary. Every time he saw her, He refused to drink her milk. When the old nannies made him laugh, he didn't respond with a straight face. You see how he laughs when you come? Qin Yining listened to it with interest. He sat on the edge of the bed and leaned over to look. As expected, Brother Yin stretched out his little hand to grab Qin Yining's ear happily, which made Qin Yining burst into laughter. Thinking of her own child, she felt a little sad. When Han and Zhao were so young, I also held them all day long. But later, I had no choice. The children were always not by my side. I was worried that they would not recognize me. Now, the children are gone. Sometimes I'm afraid that the next time I see them, they will grow up and forget the mother in their memory. I'm even afraid that I will never see them again. Qiu Feishan didn't have a deep understanding of this pain in the past. Now that she was a mother, she understood the pain of separation. Not to mention other things, if her son was taken away, the next time he saw her, he wouldn't even know that she was his mother. She worked so hard to give birth to him. Wouldn't all her efforts be in vain? Qiu Feishan patted Qin Yining's arm sympathetically. Don't worry. I think Zhao and Han are smarter than other children, and they have Master Qin's guidance. They can't be wrong. Your family members are all knowledgeable people. The female elders are gentle and sensible. Even if you don't mention it, they will often mention you. They won't let the children forget you. Qin Yining smiled. I hope so. But sometimes, I feel that it's better if they can forget me in case something happens to me in the future. What nonsense are you talking about? Qiu Feishan patted Brother Yan. His Highness will protect you. And that blockhead of my family will also protect you and Wang Yi. No matter what, he won't watch you lose your lives. Qin Yining sighed. Young Master Mu has saved us many times. He is a person who values friendship. He is a good friend of Wang Yi, so he will definitely sacrifice himself for his friend. What's more, his Sherbo wants to assist Wang Yi. I am now tied to Wang Yi's interests. So, whether it is for personal reasons or for business, the safety of you and Wang Yi is already the responsibility of Blockhead. Qin Yining nodded and smiled. Why do you also call young Master Mu a blockhead? Aren't you afraid that he will be unhappy? Of course not. He is very happy that I call him that. He said that only close people call him that. Qiu Feishan smiled very gently. I have seen through him. He doesn't have any bad intentions. Recently, he told me that he wants to send me and my child back to Tianji Valley. He said that as the wife of the Tianji sect's leader, I can't be in danger. When I heard it, I really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He cares about you. That's right. Perhaps it's because His Highness sent everyone away. He also got some inspiration. He is afraid that in the future, Brother Yin and I will be implicated. Then what do you think? Qin Yining looked at Brother Yin with a smile. Brother Yin had closed his eyes and was about to fall asleep. Qiu Feishan lowered her voice. She gently swayed her body and patted Brother Yin. She said, Of course I can't go. He doesn't understand. My grandfather raised me for so long. Although he despises women, he gave me everything he could. He was killed by that bastard Qiu Yuanqing. If I shrink my neck and refuse to avenge him, then I don't deserve to be a member of the Qiu family. But I wanted to tease him, so I asked him what Tianji Valley is like. Are there many disciples in Tianji sect? Are there many people who will serve me and my child? Guess what he said? Qin Yining curiously asked, what did he say? He said that there are a total of 3 people in Tianji sect. He, his uncle, and a grandmaster who is wandering somewhere. Tianji sect is very big. The whole valley is theirs. There's a lot of land. They can plant as much as they want. There are no servants. I was shocked when I heard it. The dignified Tianji sect is like this. Chapter 896. Qin Yining laughed and said, He wants to live a secluded life with you. Actually, that kind of life is also very good, far away from disputes, and you don't have to live in fear all day. It's good, but it must be after all the troubles have been solved, and there are no more worldly concerns. Otherwise, even if you live in seclusion, you won't have a good life, and you will have to worry about being found at any time. Qiu Feishan said to Qin Yining seriously, This time, you and Wang Yi are preparing to return to the capital, so don't worry. Yesterday, that blockhead also said that this time, no matter what, he will protect the 2 of you. Qin Yining laughed and said, I know, it's just that he has the heart, but what if his martial uncle causes trouble again? I asked the same thing. Qiu Feishan's voice was very soft, but she seemed to be unable to hold back her laughter. At that time, if it wasn't for his martial uncle suddenly causing trouble, if he could protect you, you wouldn't have almost been in danger, and they wouldn't have been caught in the middle of the night. But can you guess what he said? What did he say? Qiu Feishan's face was stiff, and she imitated Mu Jinghu and said in a low voice, Even if martial uncle doesn't agree, I'm not afraid. I see that she has been fed well by little Fox, and she is very happy. Qin Yining heard this and laughed. He plans to continue to let Wang Yi lock up Tian Jizi. Yes. Qiu Feishan was both amused and carefree. Seeing her expression, Qin Yining understood and didn't say anything more. When Qiu Feishan married Mu Jinghu, it was because she was threatened by Tian Jizi. Now it seemed that Qiu Feishan and Mu Jinghu had real feelings for each other, but she still resented Tian Jizi in her heart. It was only because of Mu Jinghu's face and also because of Tian Jizi's unpredictable means that Qiu Feishan couldn't do anything. Qin Yining whispered to Qiu Feishan about what she should pay attention to when taking care of the child. In the next few days, Qin Yining often came to visit the Mu family. Qiu Feishan was a smart person, and she was very happy to be close to Qin Yining. Back then, Qiu Feishan almost sold Pang Xiao for Mu Jinghu. The 8th day of the 12th lunar month was the day to eat porridge. Qin Yining was ordering people to deliver laba kanji to the Mu family and then to Pang Xiao when Huzi walked in quickly and replied, Your Highness, Lord Lu has arrived. Magistrate Qi has already gone to welcome him. Our people have received the news that Lord Lu is accompanied by Magistrate Qi to the Yamen. Later, he will go to the South Pacifying Army's camp to inspect. Pang Xiao smiled and nodded. He called for Huzi to come over. Come, let's eat first. Then we'll set off. Huzi was originally a little anxious. After all, Pang Xiao was ordered to lead the South Pacifying Army to guard the South. If the imperial envoy came and Pang Xiao was not in the army camp, it would be bad for his reputation. Pang Xiao could see what Huzi was worried about. He smiled and said, It's okay. Hurry up and eat. Lu Tingzhong will not go to the army camp so quickly. He first followed Magistrate Qi to the Yamen for an inspection. This is to give me time to prepare. Huzi suddenly understood. He slapped his forehead. TSK. I forgot. Huzi did not stand on ceremony. He took the bowl of porridge Qin Yining gave him with both hands. Together with Pang Xiao, he drank 7 bowls of porridge in one breath. Qin Yining did not finish half a bowl of porridge. Pang Xiao and Huzi ate a bowl of porridge together. After they finished eating, they wiped their mouths and walked out while discussing. Qin Yining looked at the two people's bellies. They did not look bloated at all. He could not help but sigh with emotion. These people who were born in the Tiger Army ate like wolves and tigers. Qin Yining was still worried about Pang Xiao. Now that she had nothing to do at home, she discussed business matters with Master Zhong. During this time, she did not forget to ask Bing Tang to arrange for Jinghu Wei, whom Pang Xiao had left for her, to scout. This time, Qin Yining's silver masked spy was taken away by Chao Yuqing. Xie was a strange place, and they were such a big family. Although Pang Xiao had arranged for Jinghu Wei and other guards to protect them, and they also had people to help them in Xie, Chao Yuqing was the one who would do her best to protect Qin Huaiyuan. Chao Yuqing was the leader of the silver masked spy. It was convenient for her to do things with more subordinates. It was also convenient for Qin Huaiyuan to find a way to take root in Xie. Therefore, the people around Qin Yining now were the people that Pang Xiao had left for her. In the afternoon, Jinghu Wei, who had gone to scout, came back. Princess, Wang Yi, Lord Lu, and Magistrate Qi have all gone to the Yamen to talk. Qin Yining asked worriedly, Did everything go well with them? Did anything go wrong? No. It seems that Wang Yi and Lord Lu had a quarrel in the barracks, but they reconciled in the end. What about Magistrate Qi's attitude? Magistrate Qi didn't do anything strange. Qin Yining nodded slightly and asked people to rest. Therefore, Magistrate Qi was still the same as before. He didn't express his attitude, didn't take sides, and would never help either side. The newcomer, Lu Tingzhong, was Pang Zhao's man. Qin Yining knew that Pang Zhao had a sense of propriety, so she was not worried about this. What she was worried about was whether there would be other people spies among the people who came with him this time. With Li Qitian's meticulousness, even if he trusted Lu Tingzhong, he wouldn't just let him come alone. He must have arranged for other people. Qin Yining was worried and waited until Pang Zhao came back in the middle of the night. Qin Yining went down to take off the cloak for him. She asked, "Why did you quarrel with Lord Lu?" Pang Zhao wasn't surprised that Qin Yining knew about this at all. He smiled and said, "If I met Lord Lu and got along so well that it was as if we were wearing a pair of pants, wouldn't your majesty be angry?" Qin Yining was stunned and then suddenly laughed. "You're right. It's my fault for worrying too much. It's my fault." Pang Zhao put his big hands around Qin Yining's waist. When he leaned closer, there was a faint smell of wine in his mouth. He pecked the corner of her lips, gently and softly. He said in a muffled voice, "If you don't worry about me, I'll be angry." Qin Yining's soft lips were tickled by Pang Zhao's slightly dry lips. She smiled and put her arms around Pang Zhao's neck. "Why are you angry? Even if I don't worry about you, you'll be fine." Pang Zhao let out a low and deep chuckle. His laughter was full of arrogance. "My sister Yi is so sweet." As he said this, he kissed her deeply. Early the next morning, Qin Yining asked Pang Zhao, while he was eating breakfast, "Your Majesty arranged for the imperial envoy to monitor you?" Pang Zhao ate in big mouthfuls. When he heard this, he swallowed the food in his mouth and said, "Your Majesty means that if I continue to defy the imperial edict, the imperial envoy has the power to arrest me and directly escort me back to the capital. If I'm willing to comply, the imperial envoy will continue to stay here and eliminate my influence here." Qin Yining expected that Li Qitian arranged for the imperial envoy to come for this. He nodded and didn't say anything else. Pang Zhao picked up a piece of fish and carefully removed the bones before putting it in Qin Yining's bowl. He asked, "Lu Tingzhong also asked about our family. What did he ask?" Qin Yining ate a mouthful of fish. Pang Zhao saw that Qin Yining liked the fish, so he continued to pick out the bones for her. He said carelessly, "Yesterday, Magistrate Qi told Lu Tingzhong that he often saw people coming and going from the family Qin. Lu Tingzhong pretended to ask me, but I said there was no one in the family. I'm afraid that Magistrate Qi's servants either saw wrongly or saw a ghost. Our families were killed when we were transporting the coffins back to our hometown. Now, only you're still alive." Qin Yining smiled. "What did they say? What else could they say?" When I answer like this, Lu Tingzhong was so scared that his face turned pale. He even ordered people to burn paper and incense and asked people to help the souls of the dead. When Magistrate Qi saw Lu Tingzhong's attitude, he didn't say anything more. Qin Yining nodded with a smile. She ate the fish that Pang Zhao picked out for her and said, "If you say this to your Majesty, will your Majesty believe it? Before I sent my father away, I thought that your Majesty would believe me. After all, the mountain is high and the emperor is far away." That day, I did leave your Majesty's men to follow up. The ground was covered with the corpses of the bandits, so it's fine to blame it on the bandits along the way. But now, perhaps I have a guilty conscience. I feel that your Majesty won't believe me. Whether he believes it or not, he won't be able to find anyone in our family. He can only believe me. Moreover, he deliberately made things difficult for us. After my father-in-law died, he didn't say anything. He was still angry about the money and provisions he lost. Now, he said that the people in the family Qin and the master of our mansion were killed by bandits on the way back. It's not easy for him to stop everyone's mouths. How can he have the time to ask us? Qin Yining smiled. In fact, Li Qitian might really be able to ask. However, just as Pang Zhao said, Li Qitian would definitely not be able to find her. She insisted that she was no longer around. Even if Li Qitian was beaten to death, he would never think that she had gone to the oasis in the desert. Thinking of this, Qin Yining put down the bowl and chopsticks hesitantly. "Actually, I'm a little worried." "Worried about what?" Qin Yining hesitated and said, Mrs. Liao and I were not the only ones who were kidnapped by Woodijan Khan. There is also Second Master Liu. Liu Heng seems to be loyal to your majesty now. Is it possible that he will mention Xia? Pang Xiao gently scratched the tip of Qin Yining's nose and said with a smile, Don't worry. Even if he wants to, he won't be able to find Xia. What's more, your majesty's energy is now with me. How can he have the mind to care about other things? Qin Yining nodded hesitantly. At that time, Mr. Liao had planted a tracking goo on Liu Heng, but Mr. Liao said that although the tracking goo's sensing distance is very far, it can only survive for 3 years. Now, 3 years have passed since that day in Xia. If he wants to use the tracking goo to do something, it won't be easy. Pang Xiao nodded with a smile. You don't have to worry. Father-in-law has already discussed with me. Since father-in-law can propose to move the whole family to Xia, these things must have been considered properly. Hall Master Liao is loyal to you, and he won't tell anyone about Xia. You can rest assured. Qin Yining's heart relaxed a little. He thought about it and smiled. That's true. And even if your majesty knows about Xia, so what? He can't find her anyway. That's right. Pang Xiao also smiled. After the two of them finished their meal, they began to discuss the matter of their departure. Qin Yining told Pang Xiao what Qiu Feishan told him. Chapter 897. That's right. Qin Yining found it funny and said, How popular is Tianjizi? Even someone as good-tempered as Mr. Mu has offended him unknowingly. Pang Xiao also felt that it was very interesting. I think it doesn't matter whether she is locked up or not. If she wants to leave, there are many ways to get out. When the time comes, she can still stir up trouble. Moreover, when we go back, we will take away all the trustworthy people. We don't have so many extra people to watch over her. Qin Yining also thought so. He smiled and said, Actually, I think Tianjizi won't cause trouble anymore. Letting Mr. Mu protect you is what she wants to see. She didn't care at first because Tianjizi wanted her dead. Now that Pang Xiao was forced to gradually walk on the right path, Tianjizi was relieved of a huge burden. She probably wouldn't be as calculative as before. Pang Xiao naturally understood what Qin Yining meant. He sighed and touched Qin Yining's head with his big hand. Let's prepare these days. Let's try to set off as soon as possible. Okay, actually, I have something else to tell you. Pang Xiao saw Qin Yining's serious expression and asked curiously, What is it? Tell me. Qin Yining hesitated. In the end, he called Lin Xiaozhou over and instructed Bing Tang and Ji Yun, You guys guard outside. Don't let anyone come close. Pang Xiao saw Qin Yining being so serious and immediately sat up straight. Bing Tang and Ji Yun saw this scene and were really worried. They were afraid that Lin Xiaozhou had caused some trouble. Bing Tang also had some premonitions. Although she didn't know exactly what happened to Lin Xiaozhou, she had been with Lin Xiaozhou for so long. She was especially concerned about Lin Xiaozhou, so she could always find some clues. However, their master knew what to do. It was not their turn to speak. Ji Yun and Bing Tang went out to keep watch. Qin Yining pulled Lin Xiaozhou closer. For years had passed, and Lin Xiaozhou was no longer malnourished. She was already a 13-year-old girl. She had grown into a slender and elegant girl. She wore a light pink cotton jacket, and her hair was combed into 2 braids. She wore pink and white beaded flowers. She was delicate and beautiful like a peach blossom blooming in spring. Lin Xiaozhou had been by Qin Yining's side for so many years, so she was fluent in her speech. When she saw Pang Xiao's serious expression, she tugged at Qin Yining's sleeve nervously. Sister, back then, when she had just arrived, she had dared to challenge this uncle in front of her, but as time passed, she had become afraid. Qin Yining said, I'm sorry, Ji. I've been hiding something from you. Pang Xiao looked at Lin Xiaozhou in bewilderment. Qin Yining also looked at Lin Xiaozhou. He held her hand and whispered to Pang Xiao, When Dian was destroyed, my father brought our family to the Zhou's capital. When we passed by the border of Liang City, our group was intercepted by Jilan's men. In order to escape, I was forced to escape deep into the mountains. That's where I met Xiao Kanji. Yes, you told me that you almost froze to death in the mountains that day. It was Xiao Kanji who saved you. Her father passed away, and a 10-year-old child like her could not survive in the mountains. You brought her down and raised her like a younger sister. Qin Yining nodded. Yes, that's what I told you and my father at that time. But in fact, I lied to you about this. Lian Xiaozhou's surname is actually not Lian. Her name should be reversed. Her surname is Zhou, and her name is Xiaolian. She's not 14 years old this year, but 13 years old. Pang Xiao was stunned. Zhou Xiaolian. Her surname is Zhou? Yes. Her father's name is Wei Xian, and her title is Yongfu. Pang Xiao was shocked. You mean, she's actually Princess Yongfu of Beiji? Yes. Qin Yining nodded. Pang Xiao found it hard to believe. What's going on? Why didn't you tell me? Qin Yining hugged Lian Xiaozhou and patted her slightly trembling hand to comfort her. He said softly, before Beiji was destroyed, the last emperor saw that the situation was not good. The emperor only cherished the young Princess Yongfu, so he sent a letter to General Liu Jinxian, asking him to take the princess away. General Liu took the 5-year-old Princess Yongfu out of the capital and lived in seclusion in the mountains. But they were always hunted down. General Liu sacrificed himself not long after to lead the pursuers away. Princess Yongfu was only 5 years old. She lived alone in the mountains. God knows how hard it was for her to survive. She lived alone until she was 9 years old, until she met me. Because she was young when she left the palace, her memory was blurred. She hadn't seen anyone for more than 4 years. When I met her, she didn't even know how to speak. She was like a little savage. Qin Yining hugged Lian Xiaozhou with a sad face. When I saw her, I thought of myself. I knew that the incapable emperor of Beiji had done a lot of evil, and his dynasty was destroyed. But Princess Yongfu was so young. She didn't do anything evil. She was even implicated by her father and suffered so much at such a young age. At that time, I thought that your father, General Liu, died because of the incapable emperor of Beiji, and Beiji was destroyed by you. You have a feud with little Kanji. Even though she was still a child, I was afraid that you would. You were afraid that I would kill her, so you kept it from me. Pang Zhao's voice was gentle. Qin Yining nodded. Little Kanji has been with me all these years. I have been teaching her about this country and the current world. She gradually grew up, learned to read and write, and learned pharmacology and medicine from Bingtang. She also knew how to distinguish right from wrong. So even though the blood of the Zhou family flows in her body, she is really different from the incapable emperor of Beiji. Pang Xiao nodded and didn't say anything. She asked again, then why are you telling me now? Why do you mention the hatred of my father in front of me? Aren't you afraid that I will kill her because of my fear of her? Because you're my husband. We have lived together for so many years, and I know you well. Speaking of the hatred of my father, didn't my father sow discord between Pang Zhongjing and the incapable emperor of Beiji? It was precisely because of this scheme that the incapable ruler of the northern Ji state seized the opportunity to deal with the Pang family. But now, you are very good to me, and you have never hated my father. You know very well what is right and what is wrong. In fact, I was too concerned and didn't tell you. When I was young, you came to see me. At that time, you were 15 or 16 years old, and you could already distinguish right from wrong. You knew that I was innocent. Now that you're almost 40 years old, you can naturally tell whether little Kanji is innocent or not. Pang Xiao smiled. But she is Princess Yongfu. I can tell whether she is innocent or not. Doesn't she hate me for destroying Beiji? Lian Xiaozhou met Pang Zhao's sharp eyes. She first shrank her neck subconsciously, but she immediately straightened her body and stubbornly blocked Qin Yining's gaze. Don't talk about sister like that. Sister is a good person. I learned how to be a good person when I followed sister. I know that many things my father did were wrong. Sister taught me the truth that the peak of prosperity is bound to decline. She also taught me the change of dynasties in history. The Zhou destroyed Beiji because my father wasted the people and money and killed the loyal people. Beiji's fate was exhausted, so it was destroyed. You were the one who led the soldiers to fight, but you did it for the people to live a good life. You're not a bad person. My father was very good to me, but he was too bad to the people in the world. Although I remember that you were the one who destroyed Beiji, I have never regarded you as an enemy. It is not only because I understand the truth and you did nothing wrong, but also because you are my sister's husband. My sister likes you very much, so you're definitely not a bad person. Sister hid it from you to protect me. She has been teaching me the truth. I will not harm you, so you are not allowed to be so fierce to sister. Even little Porridge's voice was clear and bright. It was as if she had poured out a whole cart of walnuts and said everything that was on her mind. Pang Xiao did not know whether to laugh or cry. Was he an unreasonable person in the eyes of this little girl? However, when she said, "Sister likes you, so you are definitely not a bad person," he was really happy. However, Pang Xiao wanted to tease Qin Yining, so he deliberately smiled and did not speak. Sometimes, a smile was more intimidating than words. When a person spoke, one could judge the person's mood from the tone and content. However, when a person did not say a word, the consequences of letting their imagination run wild would be terrifying. Lian Xiaozhou's hair stood on end. She bit her lower lip with her teeth and was so nervous that her whole body was tense. Qin Yining was not an ordinary person. She knew Pang Xiao too well. When Pang Xiao's expression changed, she knew that he did not take it to heart. She could not help but feel relieved. At the same time, she was moved by Pang Xiao's open-mindedness. Seeing that this person was still in the mood to tease others, she pulled Lian Xiaozhou's hand and made her stand in front of her. She rolled her eyes at Pang Xiao and comforted, "Ignore him. Your brother-in-law is like that. He is not serious at all. He is not angry." Lian Xiaozhou looked back at Pang Xiao's fierce face. She was very suspicious of Qin Yining's judgment. "Big sister, how about you send me away so that I won't be suspected by others?" Pang Xiao was so angry that he laughed. "Suspect what?" Lian Xiaozhou said. "Of course you suspect that I have the intention to avenge Imperial Father." Pang Xiao pointed at his heart. "I will sit here and let you take your revenge. See if you can kill me." Lian Xiaozhou was so scared that her face turned pale. However, she stubbornly said, "I said it clearly just now. Why can't you understand what I am saying? I don't want revenge. The change of history is the general trend. Sister taught me so much so that I can live a good life. If I kill you now, will I be able to live a good life?" "You say it as if you can kill me." Pang Xiao laughed. "You, bad person, bad uncle." Lian Xiaozhou glared angrily. Qin Yining saw that the two of them had changed the topic. He shook his head in amusement. His initial nervousness was also dissipated by this commotion. When Pang Xiao was called an uncle, he remembered that he was almost 20 years old. Qin Yining had just turned 20 years old. In addition, he was a little rough on the battlefield. He looked much older than Qin Yining. Compared to Lian Xiaozhou, he looked more like an uncle. He could not help but snort and did not want to talk to her anymore. Chapter 898. Upon hearing this, Pang Xiao said understandingly, "So many years have passed. Little Kanji should pay her respects to General Liu, who protected her. We rarely have the chance to go out, so it's a good time to pay her respects on the way back to the capital." Qin Yining raised his eyebrows. "That's the general of Beiji. Even if he's the general of Beiji, he's still a loyal person. Such a person deserves respect." Qin Yining smiled. In fact, Pang Xiao was willing to go through the trouble of collecting the bodies of her maternal grandfather's men when Dezhou and Dian were at war. He respected this type of loyal and patriotic person. Lian Xiaozhou couldn't help but sneak a glance at Pang Xiao. She pursed her lips and smiled. Paying respects to General Liu is one thing, but there's another important matter. Qin Yining leaned close to Pang Xiao and whispered a few words in her ear. Pang Xiao suddenly sat up straight. Her phoenix eyes widened as she looked at Qin Yining in shock. "Are you serious?" "Of course I'm serious. However, only little Kanji and I can find this place. Normal people won't be able to find it in a short time after entering the mountain." Pang Xiao looked at Qin Yining and little Kanji with a complicated expression. "You guys are really amazing. My lord has been looking for this item ever since he left the throne. Someone said that the Beiji Imperial Jade Seal had disappeared a long time ago. It was later confirmed that this was indeed the case. Previously, my lord was still scolding the Beiji Emperor for losing the Imperial Jade Seal. Could it be that he used radishes to carve seals to handle court affairs? I didn't expect that this item would be with you. Pang Xiao looked at Lien Xiaozhou. Lien Xiaozhou said, I don't understand either. I don't remember the things in the palace, so I don't have any idea about the Imperial Jade Seal. Later, my sister took me away from there and hid this item. Pang Xiao nodded. If that's the case, we really have to make a trip to the mountain. However, we have to plan who will bring along. Qin Yining held Lien Xiaozhou's hand and said with a smile, I'll leave it to you. Pang Xiao thought for a moment, then stood up and said, Now the Imperial Envoy has arrived. Everything that needs to be done has been done. I will go and make some arrangements. Let's set off as soon as possible. If this drags on, Your Majesty might not just issue an edict next time. He might even arrange for someone to capture him. After Pang Xiao went out, Qin Yining held Lien Xiaozhou's hand and said, Don't worry. Wang Yi is not an unreasonable person. He won't hurt you. I've always known. Lien Xiaozhou looked at Qin Yining with trust in her eyes. Since sister arranged to tell Wang Yi about this, she must be certain that I'm safe. Good girl. Qin Yining patted Lien Xiaozhou's head and said with a smile, Go tell your sister Bingtang and sister Jiyun that we should pack up and prepare to return to the capital. Yes. Lien Xiaozhou ran out happily. Qin Yining rubbed the space between his eyebrows. He didn't know what the situation in the capital was like, but he was certain that it definitely wouldn't be as comfortable as it was here. Now that he was under Li Qitian's nose, he couldn't help but be tense. However, after a short period of exhaustion, Qin Yining's fighting spirit was ignited again. In order to reunite with her family as soon as possible, in order for her 2 children to be able to live freely in this world in the future, without having to hide from place to place, she was willing to do anything. Although Xie was good, it was, after all, a place to hide from the world. She couldn't let her family live there cautiously forever, right? With the Imperial Envoy present, Magistrate Qi was more active than usual. Several times when Lu Ting went back and forth between the military camp and the Yamen, Magistrate Qi followed by his side. Perhaps because the Imperial Envoy was present, Magistrate Qi had a backbone and was no longer afraid of the slightest thing. When the news that Pang Xiao had been transferred back to the capital and that the commander of the South Pacifying Army would select a suitable candidate to be sent out spread, the entire South Pacifying Army camp was in an uproar. In the beginning, the soldiers who were not convinced by Pang Xiao and made trouble for Pang Xiao were all discussing in private when they heard that Pang Xiao had been transferred for no reason. There were even some straightforward men who formed a group to ask the Imperial Envoy. The court didn't give out grain and told the local people to raise their own salaries. Brothers, you've never seen the Yamen give out money, but Wang Yi came and never shorted the brothers' rations and salaries. That's right. Wang Yi even led the brothers to suppress bandits. In the past, the people of the old Dian capital saw us as enemies, but now they see us as benefactors. Now I'm someone who can walk with my back straight in front of the people. Such a good commander, you can't just change him with a few words. The soldiers had rough temperaments and loud voices. They shook Magistrate Qi and Lu Ting's heads until they were buzzing. After these people expressed their views, Lu Ting said, Your Majesty arranged for Wang Yi to return to the capital, so you must also want to commend Wang Yi for his achievements here. I already know everyone's thoughts and will definitely be heard by the heavens. Everyone, don't worry. Magistrate Qi also nodded repeatedly, indicating that Pang Xiao's transfer was ordered by Your Majesty. Hearing that it was an imperial edict, the people present had no objections. Everyone discussed and left. Pang Xiao stood not far away with Huzi with his hands behind his back and saw everything. Huzi curled his lips and whispered with righteous indignation. How can these idiots be so gullible? If it were me, I definitely wouldn't believe it. Even if Your Majesty is satisfied with your work, he can just swagger and reward you. Who doesn't rub powder on their face and rub it in their pants? You've been transferred back to the capital without any promotion or reward. It looks like you're going to be escorted to the capital for trial. Pang Xiao didn't refute Huzi's words, but he also didn't continue. He only said, "Tell our brothers to get ready. Mr. Xie, Mr. Su, and the others also pack up at the fastest speed. We'll set off tomorrow." "Yes." Huzi nodded and then asked, "Wang Yi, we still have 2 people locked up here." "Who were the 2 people locked up?" "Of course, it was Yuan Yujiang Yuan, the shopkeeper arranged by Tian Jizi and Lu family to check the accounts in Guangdong." Pang Xiao smiled and said, "It doesn't matter. With Tian Jizi's ability, she can leave whenever she wants. I'll let Tian Jizi out now. When did I say I'll let her go?" Pang Xiao raised his eyebrows. Huzi was surprised and said, "Didn't you just say that she can leave whenever she wants?" Pang Xiao curved his lips and said, "She's so powerful. She can leave with her own ability. Why does she need this king to let her go?" "In this case, will Mr. Mu? No, he won't. He said himself, we have good food and drink here. He wants his uncle to calm down so that he won't let his imagination run wild when he comes out." Huzi was speechless when he heard this. Then he asked, "What about shopkeeper Yuan? He's coveting your Wang Fei and wants to swagger out. Let him eat his prison food and think about where he went wrong." Huzi nodded and couldn't help but sigh. With Wang Ye's jealousy, it was already merciful that he didn't take Yuan Yujiang's life. Chapter 899. Mu Jinghu finally understood why Pang Xiao was so concerned about Qin Yining. Previously, he had secretly lamented that love was long, but now he was living the life of a warm bed with his wife and children. If he did not know what he had to do, it would be difficult for him to leave home. "Have you decided to set off tomorrow?" "Yes, I don't plan to bring too many people back this time. I will probably only bring my trusted aides. Jinghu Wei, I only plan to bring 50 people. Mu Jinghu frowned in disapproval. "Why not bring more people? You know that you will encounter trouble when you return. That person is not a benevolent person. When he sees that you have too few people, he may secretly order someone to assassinate you." Pang Xiao sighed. "How would I not know this? It's just that the number of guards in the prince's residence is limited. Moreover, I am now at the cusp of the storm. There are many people in the court who hate me, and even more officials who are watching me. No one knows when someone will appear to censor me. Since I have already made plans to return to the capital, it is naturally better to avoid unnecessary trouble. As for an assassination, I am not afraid. I will just bring more elites. I don't believe that he will really dare to kill me with great fanfare. I don't want his feathers anymore." Mu Jinghu thought about Pang Xiao's sullen days and could not help but shake his head and sigh. "You have already given in enough. If you give in again, your family's lives will be lost. If it were me, I would not be as kind as you. However, you have always thought more thoroughly than me." Mu Jinghu suggested seriously, "You should also make a good plan. You can't go back to living your life like before. Let's not talk about anything else. Just talk about your wife. How many times has she escaped death? What if she's not so lucky the next time something happens? I did not understand you in the past, but now I understand. If anyone dares to touch my wife and children, it will be like stabbing a knife into my heart. I do not dare to imagine those days." "I know." Pang Xiao nodded emotionally and patted Mu Jinghu's arm. "Thank you. Is there a need to be so courteous between us? Shan Shan and I have already discussed this. When you enter the capital this time, I must accompany you. Don't worry. If there's any danger, I'll definitely be able to protect you and the Qin clan. But I'm afraid I won't be able to protect everyone. There are many crouching tigers and hidden dragons in the capital. Your Majesty has many experts by his side, so it's not easy for you to achieve this. What's more, in my current situation, not only did you not break off the cleansing agent with me, you even dared to escort us back. This is enough to show your loyalty. Blockhead, I don't even know how to thank you. If we're brothers, then there's no need to say such things." "When Marshal Uncle and I were captured by the Chiu family, didn't you do your best for me? Not only that, he was almost betrayed by Chiu Feishan." Mu Jinghu's skin was thin, and he felt a little uncomfortable when he thought of this. Pang Xiao did not continue to be courteous with him and changed the topic. If you go with me, the family will be completely dependent on Boss Chio's support. She has to be busy with business matters, busy with guarding against the Chio family, and also looking after Yen. I originally wanted to let your martial uncle out to help her. After all, with your martial uncle's ability, if he wanted to come out, he could think of any way to come out. But I'm worried that Boss Chio and Yenner will be fine. After thinking about it, I still think it's better to let your martial uncle live alone for the time being. Pang Xiao did not know about the Lin Xiaozhou and the Imperial Jade Seal before, so naturally it was another plan. Now that he knew this big secret, it involved a lot of people, so he had to be more careful. Tian Jizi's ability to stir up trouble was too strong, and the way he did things was often unexpected. Pang Xiao was not only worried about his family, but also that Qiu Feishan and the child would be at a disadvantage. In order to help him, Mu Jinghu could not stay at home to look after his wife and child. If anything happened to Qiu Feishan and Yin how could Pang Xiao face Mu Jinghu in this life? Obviously, Mu Jinghu also thought of this. Anyway, my martial uncle has nothing to do all day long. You're feeding her with good food and drinks, so I don't have to worry about her. When I go out, I don't have to worry about her going out to cause trouble or being captured by someone. It's good to let her stay at your place. Pang Xiao nodded and did not say much. After discussing for a while, they agreed to leave early the next morning. Pang Xiao got up and said goodbye. I'm going back to prepare. You should go and accompany the child, too. The next time you see Yin he's going to be a little older. Mu Jinghu smiled. That's good. He's too young and soft now. I don't even dare to touch him. When he's older, I can teach him martial arts. The child you teach must be good. Pang Xiao thought of his two children. The next time they meet, he did not know if the children would still recognize him as their father. Suppressing the emotions in his heart, the two of them said goodbye to each other. When they returned home, Qin Yining had already arranged everything in the mansion, and their luggage was also ready. Qin Yining helped Pang Xiao wash her hair, while telling her what they brought this time and what arrangements they made for many things. Sister E, you're so nice. I don't have to worry about anything. You've already arranged everything so neatly. Pang Xiao listened to Qin Yining's words. She wiped her hair with a cloth towel and hugged Qin Yining bare-chested. His upper body was muscular and well-proportioned. His honey-colored skin was covered with large and small scars, which glowed softly under the orange light. Qin Yining blushed and let him hold her waist. She stood on her tiptoes and stretched her arms to wipe him dry. Stop fooling around. It's cloudy tonight and the wind is strong. I don't think the weather tomorrow will be good. Let's rest early so that we can be more energetic on the road tomorrow. Are you afraid that I don't have enough energy? Pang Xiao hugged her a little tighter. The two of them were close together. Qin Yining's face was red, and she quickly pushed him away. Stop fooling around. You're always fooling around. Pang Xiao was in a good mood. He hugged Qin Yining and slept soundly. However, just as Qin Yining said, the weather on the 10th day of the 12th lunar month in the 7th year of Shangchong was not good. The group set off at dawn. The sky was still dark, and the wind blew the snowflakes with a whistling sound. Qin Yining only opened the warm curtains a little and shrunk her neck because of the cold. Pang Xiao, Mu Jinghu, and Huzi were outside with Jinghu Wei and the others. Qin Yining opened the carriage window a little. Pang Xiao heard the noise and immediately turned his horse around. He approached the carriage and asked with a smile, "What's wrong? What do you want?" Qin Yining looked at the dark sky. The wind was blowing so hard that the white fox fur on her collar was sticking to her face. In this kind of weather, it's better not to ride a horse outside. We have enough carriages. Let everyone get on the carriages. We just need to take turns to drive the carriages. Huzi, Mu Jinghu, and the other Jinghu Wei all laughed. This little bit of wind and snow is nothing. We're still in the south. When we return to the north, the knife-like snow can cut our faces. Our brothers can still hide in the snow for a day and a night. Pang Xiao laughed heartily. He adjusted Qin Yining's collar and urged her, "Your body is weak and can't stand the cold. Quickly go back. Tell Jiyun and Bing Tang not to save on charcoal." Qin Yining helplessly sat back in the carriage. She closed the window and lowered the warm curtains. She hugged the hand warmer for a long time before her cold hands warmed up slightly. I'm most worried about the winter in the capital. We're now traveling in the 12th lunar month. It'll probably be spring by the time we reach the capital. Jian saw Qin Yining shrunk her neck and buried half her face in her collar like a small animal that was afraid of the cold. She couldn't help but tease her. It'll be even colder in late spring. In February, it'll be freezing but not the earth. Qin Yining wrinkled her nose. They weren't returning to the capital, and there wasn't such weather. They had just set off, and they were already caught up with dark clouds, strong winds, and sudden snow. Could it be that the heavens were warning them of the difficulties ahead? With Pang Xiao and Jinghui around, the journey was very smooth. After arriving at Liang City, Pang Xiao asked Jian, Bing Tang, Xieyu, and Su Weiji to follow Jinghu Wei to stay in the city to replenish their supplies. He called Qin Yining and Lin Xiaozhou alone and brought only Huzi and Mu Jinghu with him. The group of 5 entered the mountains. The mountains were covered in snow. If one wasn't familiar with the mountains, they would probably get lost as soon as they entered. Fortunately, Qin Yining and Lin Xiaozhou had rich experience living in the mountains and had a strong sense of direction. The two of them led the way while Pang Xiao and the other 2 dragged them on foot. After spending half a day, they arrived at an open space in the evening. In the blink of an eye, many years had passed. The burned area that was left as a mark was already covered in snow and ice. The trees in the small forest that had been burned by the fire were all over the place. There was still snow hanging on the withered branches. Qin Yining and Lin Xiaozhou held hands and walked around the open space, carefully looking at the surroundings. Lin Xiaozhou said, "It's here." Qin Yining nodded and turned around to where the house was. This used to be a wooden house. Pang Xiao nodded and took out the shovel that he brought up the mountain and gave it to Huzi and Mu Jinghu. "Come, let's start." Huzi took the shovel and stamped his feet in confusion. "Wang Yi, the ground is frozen solid. I don't think the shovel will be able to dig a hole." "Go ahead and dig. There are treasures inside." Pang Xiao had already taken off his cloak and handed it to Qin Yining. He swung his arms and started digging. When Huzi and Mu Jinghu heard that there were treasures, they did not ask any more questions and only focused on digging. However, just as Huzi said, the ground in the mountains was already frozen solid. If not for the fact that the 3 of them were not ordinary people, they would not have been able to stand it after a few digging. Qin Yining said, "You don't have to dig too deep. When we first buried it, it was only a foot deep. You guys can just dig around this area." Qin Yining stomped a circle in the snow. The 3 of them dug according to the position that Qin Yining had pointed out. When it was deep into the night and the sounds of the wild beasts in the mountains rose and fell, Mu Jinghu's shovel seemed to have hit something hard. "What is this?" He squatted down to check it out. Pang Xiao and Huzi also ran over, wiping their sweat. Qin Yining and Lin Xiaozhou were almost frozen solid. When they heard the noise, they also moved closer and brought their torches closer to take a look. The 3 men carefully dug away the soil near the hard object. Soon, a jade seal the size of a man's fist was revealed. There was a lifelike, coiling dragon carved on the seal. Chapter 900. Pang Xiao lifted the seal and patted away the dirt on it. The wind in the mountains caused the torches to flicker, but the words "treasure of Northern Ji" could still be seen clearly. Huzi and Mu Jinghu were dumbfounded. "This is the Imperial Jade Seal of Northern Ji. How did this appear here?" Mu Jinghu and Huzi turned to look at Qin Yining at the same time. Qin Yining had marked out this piece of land, and she even knew the depth of the excavation. It was obvious that the Imperial Jade Seal that Li Qitian could not find was indeed hidden by Qin Yining. Huzi lowered his voice and could not hide his excitement as he said, "I did not expect the princess consort to hide such a treasure." Pang Xiao smiled and said, "You can't say such things carelessly. Just treat it as if this item has a mind of its own and ran here on its own." Qin Yining burst out laughing. Lin Xiaozhou also smiled until her eyes turned into crescents. The slightly tense atmosphere immediately eased. Huzi also suddenly realized that his words were inappropriate. He smiled apologetically and scratched the back of his head. Pang Xiao turned around and handed the Imperial Jade Seal to Qin Yining. "Take it," she said. "Let's restore this place to its original state." Okay. Huzi and Mu Jinghu did not have any objections. Very quickly, they began to work in full swing. Qin Yining held the heavy Imperial Jade Seal and showed it to Lien Xiaozhou. Lien Xiaozhou's slender and white fingertips gently stroked the muddy words, "Treasure of Northern Ji." Her eyes were already wet. It was impossible to say that she did not feel a bit of disappointment about the past. But she was no longer an insensible child. She understood what she could and could not do now. Moreover, in order to protect her, Qin Yining had hidden the truth from his most beloved for so many years. No matter how difficult her life had been, he had never mistreated her. Even if he wanted to take out the Imperial Jade Seal now, he had considered everything for her before telling her about it. If it was someone else with bad intentions, they would have deliberately left her behind or even killed her. Wouldn't she have to bear with it? Qin Yining was kind and did his best for her. He treated her like a younger sister. She could not be conflicted over the past that she could not remember clearly. It was not worth it to use the past to hurt the people closest to her. Northern Ji's fate was already over. It was already in the past. Pang Xiao and the other two restored the place to its original state. They also brought some snow to cover the ground. Fortunately, the snow has been heavy recently. It won't be long before these traces and our footprints are covered, Pang Xiao said with a smile. Qin Yining nodded and handed the Imperial Jade Seal to Pang Xiao for safekeeping. "I don't think anyone will come here in the wilderness. Let's think about how to spend the night. It's not suitable to go down the mountain now." As soon as he finished speaking, they heard a wolf howl. Qin Yining and Lien Xiaozhou could not help but tense up. Pang Xiao hugged Qin Yining's shoulder. As far as the eye could see, the branches of the forest were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. The sound of wolves howling could also be heard. The north wind whistled, mercilessly drilling into people's necklines. The rustling sound of falling snow in the dark and silent night was like the footsteps of an unknown object. He suddenly remembered when Qin Yining was young. The dark night, the cold, the hunger, and the possibility of wild beasts pouncing on them at any time. They had to work nonstop every day. What if they suddenly fell sick? What if they encountered wild beasts or got injured? While other girls were living a comfortable life, his darling had already tasted the cold and warmth of the world in order to survive. Qin Yining did not notice Pang Xiao's strange emotions. He held Lien Xiaozhou's hand and asked, "Is there a cave nearby where we can take shelter for the night?" Lien Xiaozhou nodded. "Yes, let's walk this way along the slope." "Sister, come with me." Lien Xiaozhou held Qin Yining's hand. The two of them skillfully picked up a thick wooden stick to clear the obstacles in front of them. Their nimble footsteps surprised Pang Xiao and the others. Pang Xiao, Mu Jinghu, and Huzi hurriedly followed. After walking for about 10 minutes, Lien Xiaozhou found the familiar place. That place could not be considered a cave. It was just a depression formed by the thick roots of a large tree on the slope. It could cover half of the top of the head and block the wind. The five of them lit a fire in the middle. Qin Yining hung his cloak to make a curtain. Lien Xiaozhou followed suit. She took off her cloak and stood next to Qin Yining. Qin Yining ordered the three men, "Go find snow and pile it up. Once the snow is piled up and compacted, it will block the gap." The three obediently did as they were told. Everyone worked together and quickly made a cave for them to hide in. They entered the cave through a gap that only allowed one person to pass through. The warm bonfire's heat hit their faces. The slightly damp branches were abandoned. The dry branches that were chosen did not create much smoke when they burned. As a result, the heat from the bonfire quickly solidified the snow inside the house. I didn't think that Wang Fei was so skilled to be able to create such a warm snow house. Huzi smiled and said. Qin Yining smiled and said, "This is nothing. We're just temporarily squeezing in. If we live in a place like this for a long time, we will get sick." Huzi wanted to ask what kind of place Qin Yining had lived in when he was in the mountains. Was it a house or a cave? But when he saw Pang Zhao's distressed expression, he swallowed the words that had reached his mouth. Qin Yining and Lin Xiaozhou sat in the innermost corner. Pang Xiao spread out her cloak for Qin Yining and Lin Xiaozhou to use as a blanket. She sat down next to Qin Yining. Huzi and Mu Jinghu also sat down next to Pang Xiao. They took out the flatbread they had on them and used tree branches to skewer them over the fire. Qin Yining let Lin Xiaozhou lean against her shoulder. She leaned against Pang Zhao's shoulder. In this simple and warm environment, there was a faint smell of firewood and a fragrant flatbread in the air. It made people feel at ease. Perhaps because Pang Xiao was beside her, Qin Yining was not as vigilant as before in the mountains. She quickly fell asleep. Pang Xiao originally wanted to wake her up to eat some flatbread, but when she saw that she was sleeping peacefully with her face flushed red, she could not bear to wake her up. She simply ate some flatbread with Huzi and Mu Jinghu in the snow. After arranging for them to take turns to keep watch, they went to sleep peacefully. The next day, the sky was bright. The five of them ate a few bites of flatbread and found their way down the mountain. After they were done packing, they returned to Liang City. Bing Tang guessed that Pang Xiao had brought them out for a night and even called Lin Xiaozhou along. What they did must have had something to do with Lin Xiaozhou's background. But even though Qin Yining, Lin Xiaozhou, and Huzi had all gone, Bing Tang did not take the initiative to ask any of them. She did not need to ask what she should know. Qin Yining would have told her long ago. If it was dangerous to her, Qin Yining would only hide it from her. Everyone else had the same thought as Bing Tang and tacitly did not ask any more questions. Qin Yining changed out of her wet clothes. When the cold wind blew, she covered her mouth and sneezed 3 times. Princess Consort, don't catch a cold. Bing Tang said nervously. I'll go and prepare some ginger soup first. You and little Kanji should eat a big bowl of it. It'll drive away the cold. Qin Yining smiled and nodded. Give some to the 3 of them as well. Got it. Bing Tang quickly went to borrow the inn's kitchen. Ji Yin took a hot handkerchief to help Qin Yining clean up. The closer we get to the capital, the colder it gets. Princess Consort's body is cold. You should be more careful. That's why your hands and feet are as cold as ice. It probably won't happen in the future. It can't be helped. Last night, I slept in the snow. Achoo! Qin Yining rubbed her itchy nose and said with tears in her eyes, it was very cold at night. Luckily, we found a very small cave and made a fire. Otherwise, who knows how cold it would be right now. Qi Yin sighed. You've caught a cold. You don't have to wash your hair today. Wipe it clean and wear something thicker. Have some ginger soup and sweat out. It'll be even better if you can sleep. And Qin Yining nodded and wiped her nose with a piece of straw paper. Pang Xiao ate the ginger soup next door. When she heard Bing Tang say that Qin Yining seemed to have caught a cold, she hurriedly returned to her room. Qin Yining had already finished the ginger soup in 1 gulp and chewed on a piece of ginger. It was so spicy that her forehead and neck were sweating. Pang Xiao came in and saw Qin Yining wrapped herself in a blanket. Her heart ached as she said, it's all my fault. I didn't consider everything thoroughly and didn't prepare to spend the night on the mountain. That's why you caught a cold. It has nothing to do with you. Everyone is fine except for me who caught a cold. That's my own problem. Qin Yining said with a smile. Have you finished discussing? When are we leaving? You're sick. Let's rest here for 2 days before leaving. Weren't we supposed to rush to Mouse City for New Year's Eve? If we delay any longer, I'm afraid we'll be in the wilderness on New Year's Eve. Pang Xiao thought for a while and said, let's see how you're doing first. If it doesn't work out, we'll just stay here for New Year's Eve before leaving. Anyway, it's not the first time I've disobeyed an imperial decree. Qin Yining shook his head in amusement. That won't do. You've already been caught red-handed. You can't add fuel to the fire. At this point, Qin Yining waved at Ji Yun and Bing Tang and called Lin Xiaozhou over. Bing Tang and Ji Yun knew that Qin Yining had something to say. They quickly retreated to guard the door and didn't let anyone near. Jishi, I want to discuss something with you. What's the matter? Pang Xiao asked seriously. Qin Yining held Lin Xiaozhou's hand and looked at her slightly nervous expression. He touched her cheek tenderly and said, I want to ask for your help to find someone suitable to take care of Xiaozhou and place her in a safe place. We found that thing, but I'm afraid that sooner or later, we won't be able to hide Xiaozhou's identity. When that time comes, we'll get her killed. Pang Xiao lowered her eyes and pondered for a moment. She nodded. You're right. It's best to make sure nothing goes wrong. Lin Xiaozhou shook her head. Sister, I'm not afraid. I don't want to be separated from you, and I don't want to be separated from Sister Bingtang either. Chapter 901. But I don't want to be alone. Sister, I'm not afraid of death. I don't want to go, Lin Xiaozhou said, her eyes red. After experiencing the warmth of the human world, she had begun to be afraid of living alone. Seeing Lin Xiaozhou like this, Qin Yining's nose turned sour, and he almost cried. He hugged Lin Xiaozhou and comforted her by patting her back. Don't worry. When I took you out of the mountains, you were my responsibility. You're my sister. I always keep my word. I won't leave you alone. But you know the situation Wang Yi and I are in. I'm afraid that if I take you back and your identity is exposed, we won't be able to protect you. Lin Xiaozhou blinked her big eyes sadly and bit her lip. I know, but I still don't want to be separated from you. She knew that Pang Xiao and Qin Yining's trip was dangerous. They were sisters. At the critical moment, she went to live a peaceful life, leaving Qin Yining alone to take the risk. How could she be at ease? What she was most afraid of was not that Qin Yining would leave her alone and not come to find her, but that Qin Yining would not be able to find her in the future. How could Qin Yining not understand what Lin Xiaozhou was worried about? He pulled her and persuaded her for a long time. Seeing that she seemed to have made up her mind, Lin Xiaozhou had no choice but to nod. Qin Yining asked Pang Xiao, Do you have a suitable place? Pang Xiao thought for a while and said, Wait a moment. I'll go ask Mu too. After saying that, she lifted her leg and left. Not long after, Pang Xiao and Mu Jinghu came back together. Qin Yining said in surprise, Is Tianji Valley nearby? Yes. Mu Jinghu said, It's not far from here. Qin Yining frowned and said, But I heard from Boss Chiu that your Tianji sect is especially poor. You live in straw huts and sleep on haystacks. Even your food bowls are made of wood. Mu Jinghu blushed and coughed. That's because I can't bear to use a good one. It's not as exaggerated as what Shan Shan said. Seeing Mu Jinghu's reaction, Pang Xiao could not help but laugh. He's the most stingy one in their sect. Tianjizi is a master at accumulating wealth. The previous generations of Tianji sect leaders were all extraordinary people that definitely have treasures hidden in their chests. It's not like we can't live a good life in Heaven's Secret Valley. Looking at Lin Xiaozhou, Pang Xiao said, It's just that Heaven's Secret Valley is someone else's territory. At that time, I couldn't arrange for my whole family to go there, so as not to disturb the peace of Heaven's Secret Valley. But little Kanji is just a little girl. I'll arrange for 2 more guards to protect her. There are only 3 people in total. We can still arrange it. Mu Jinghu nodded and said, Yes, 3 people can definitely live there. The house and land are ready-made. They can be self-sufficient. It's also convenient to go out and buy things. But there are some special formations that need to be recognized if they want to go in and out. This is also easy. I'll just tell them. Qin Yining asked curiously, Does Chiman Dunjia really exist in this world? In your Heaven's Secret Valley, ordinary people can't go in? Mu Jinghu nodded. Yes, but I don't know how to do it. Qin Yining nodded and asked again, Then does Tian Jizi know how to do it? Martial Uncle has learned the art of geomancy for a long time, but the most powerful thing is still divination. In fact, I also wanted to learn Chiman Dunjia, but Grandmaster said that I was a blockhead and not very useful. He only taught me martial arts and medical skills. He also said that if he accepted another disciple in the future, he would teach him Chiman Dunjia. Qin Yining smiled and said, I know. Originally, your Grandmaster accepted you as Tianjizi's disciple and let him teach you martial arts in order to let you protect Tianjizi. But Tianjizi was too lazy to take a disciple, so she pushed you to a junior brother who hasn't appeared yet. She only asked you to call her martial uncle. Mu Jinghu smiled embarrassedly and nodded. That's what happened. Since Tianjizi is good at divination, it's certain that she will have a junior brother in the future. Qin Yining smiled and said, maybe your real Shizhuan is already learning Chimen Dunjia. Mu Jinghu was stunned when he heard this. After thinking for a while, he grinned and said, maybe that's the case. Pang Xiao smiled and said, well, we've digressed too far. What do you think of placing little Kanji in Tianji Valley for the time being? Qin Yining thought for a while and said, I think it's good. He looked at Lian Xiaozhou and asked, what do you think? Lian Xiaozhou was naturally reluctant, but after thinking about it carefully, she also knew that Qin Yining was doing it for her own good. Although she was uneasy about her future life, she could only accept it. Qin Yining said, arrange 2 reliable bodyguards to protect her. In addition, I want to buy 2 maidservants to serve little Kanji. It's inconvenient for a girl to only have 2 men by her side. It's better to buy 2 maidservants. At least she can have someone to talk to. That's good. Blockhead, what do you think? Mu Jinghu smiled and said, it's okay. It's okay to have a few more. There are empty houses in the valley, but I won't tell outsiders how to get in and out of Tianji Valley. That's natural. You only need to tell 3 of them. The others don't need to learn. If there's anything that needs to be communicated, you'll have a way to send a letter. Mu Jinghu naturally nodded in agreement. Since the decision was made, the group naturally stayed in Liang City temporarily. Qin Yining's recuperation was one thing, but the most important thing was to prepare for life after entering the valley. Bing Tang and Ji Yun naturally knew that Lian Xiaozhou was leaving at the first moment. Although they couldn't bear to part with her, they also knew that the princess consort was willing to let Lian Xiaozhou leave because it was better for her to leave than to stay by her side. Bing Tang treated Lian Xiaozhou like a younger sister. He was sad, but he couldn't stop her. He could only prepare a large pile of pills and powders for her. He even gave her the handbook that he used to prescribe medicine. You can flip through it when you're bored. Don't forget what I taught you. Lian Xiaozhou's eyes were swollen like walnuts from crying. She sobbed as she nodded and kept the handbook close to her body. Qin Yining had personally examined the 2 servant girls that Ji Yun bought. He confirmed that they were from a poor family with many children. They were sold because they couldn't survive. The older one was 10 years old this year. She was called Pandi and had an extremely cheerful personality. The younger one was 8 years old this year. She was a little timid and extremely honest. She didn't even have a name. Everyone in the family called her AI, hey, wretched girl. Qin Yining smiled and said, little Kanji, give them a name. In the future, they will be your servant girls. Lian Xiaozhou thought for a while and said, Pan Di will be called my dong. Then she looked at the timid 8-year-old servant girl and smiled. You will be called Banksia. They're all medicinal herbs? Yes. Lian Xiaozhou smiled and said, they're all names of medicinal herbs that big sister Bing Tang told me. They're pleasant to hear and easy to remember. Qin Yining smiled. Our little Kanji's naming skills are much better than before. Lian Xiaozhou recalled that she had insisted on calling her kanji lotus seed kanji. She couldn't help but find it funny and regretful. Qin Yining patted the back of Lian Xiaozhou's hand and comforted her. With my dong and Banksia by your side, I can rest assured. I will find you as soon as possible. You just have to focus on living your life well. We will definitely be reunited one day. Lian Xiaozhou nodded. Qin Yining looked at my dong and Banksia again. You two serve Miss Lian well and serve her as your master. In the future, you will benefit a lot. However, your Miss Lian has a good temper, but I'm not a pushover. If I find out that you disrespected her or betrayed her, we wouldn't dare. My dong and Banksia were so frightened that they knelt down and kowtowed repeatedly. They didn't know who Qin Yining was, but they felt that this madam was like a fairy and was so dignified. She must be the madam of a wealthy family. They had heard of how wealthy families dealt with disobedient servants. After being frightened like this, how would they dare to be disloyal? Qin Yining played the role of the bad cop, so naturally, he gave the opportunity to play the role of the good cop to Lian Xiaozhou. Even little Kanji understood this and took the opportunity to call the 2 maidservants. When Qin Yining's cold took a turn for the better, Mu Jinghu brought Lian Xiaozhou and the rest to leave the inn quietly under the cover of the night. Qin Yining didn't send them off. Before Lian Xiaozhou set off, he only came to Qin Yining's side and held her hand quietly for a while. They didn't say any words of farewell. However, Qin Yining's heart was empty now that he had sent away another person who had always been by his side. Even Bingtang and Ji Yun couldn't lift their spirits. 2 days later, Mu Jinghu rushed back and explained in detail that everything in the valley was fine. Only then did Qin Yining have no choice but to let go of this matter completely. The group once again braved the wind and snow and embarked on the journey back to the capital. This year, for some reason, they didn't have many sunny days along the way. The closer they got to the north, the more windy and snowy the journey became. On New Year's Eve, just as Qin Yining had said, they didn't make it to Mouse City at all. Instead, they spent New Year's Eve in a temple at the entrance of a small village with only 7 or 8 families. Everyone stayed in the temple as it snowed heavily outside. They listened to the whistling of the wind. There were a few bonfires in the temple. Qin Yining and Pang Xiao wrapped themselves in a fur coat and drank the strongest burning hot knife to keep warm. They listened to the men who traveled with them talk about the interesting things that happened when they were in the Tiger Army. Although it was a little simple, this New Year's was very interesting. The group walked through the cold winter. When they arrived at Daxing, which was 2 to 3 days away from the capital, it was already the 20th of the first month of the 8th year of Shengchong. Pang Xiao had his own field in Daxing. Naturally, he brought his men to stay in the field for a few days to rest and reorganize. It would also be good for them to think about what to do next. In the main room of the field house, the large Kong bed by the window was heated up. There was a square table on the Kong bed with tea bowls, melon seeds, peanuts, candies, and dried fruits. The group sat around the square table. They didn't care about seniority and gathered together to talk. Qin Yining sat next to Pang Xiao and peeled melon seeds. He smiled and said, "Is it all right for us to talk here?" "It's fine. Don't worry. I've arranged for people outside." "That's good." Qin Yining put the melon seeds aside and picked up another one to continue peeling. "Actually, I've thought of an idea these days. Today, I'd like to ask Mr. Xie and Mr. Su to give me some advice." Chapter 902. How can I bear the praise of the 2 gentlemen? It's just a woman's small insight. Just treat it as throwing a brick to attract jade. Qin Yining thought for a moment and then said, "What I mean is that when we enter the city, Wang Yi and I will still have to travel separately." "Travel separately?" Pang Xiao didn't understand and asked, "How are we going to travel separately?" Qin Yining said, "It's not that we are going to travel separately. I'm going to take some people to enter the city first as the vanguard. We haven't been back for a long time. The road from the capital to the old capital is very long. It's inevitable that news won't reach here. Now that we are back, we don't know His Majesty's attitude, so we need to find out what's true. First, Wang Yi has been in the old capital for a long time. The mountains are high and the road is far away. He doesn't know the attitude of the court officials and common people towards Wang Yi. I also plan on building support for Wang Yi first. When the preparations are complete, it won't be too late for Wang Yi to enter the city." Hearing this, Su Weiji couldn't help stroking his long beard. He nodded and said, "Wang Fei is right. There is no harm in entering the city when we are fully prepared." Pang Xiao was a bit hesitant. Since he didn't know Li Qitian's attitude towards him, even if he wanted to test him, he couldn't use Qin Yining as a pathfinder. Qin Yining saw Pang Xiao's hesitation at a glance and said with a smile, "Don't worry. I will enter the capital with great fanfare. No one dares to touch me. They want to use me to deal with you, but they care more about their face." Hearing this, Xie Yu also said, "Wang Yi, this old man feels that Wang Fei's words are reasonable." Pang Xiao's eyebrows were tightly knitted, and the word Chuan was squeezed out between his eyebrows. Qin Yining smiled and said, "I understand Wang Ye's worries, but you should understand that this is an important place in the capital. You can do whatever you want outside, but you can't do it here. If you do, it will be a stain on your life." "Of course I understand. but that was when you were in the palace. Pang Xiao didn't continue, but everyone understood what he meant. Back then, Qin Yining had almost been framed in the palace. Even now, he was still afraid. If it wasn't for Qin Yining's intelligence, he would have been too far away to do anything. In the end, the only thing he could do was collect her corpse. Qin Yining laughed and said, "You're worrying too much. I'm not in the palace right now." Xie Yu and Su Weiji both felt that Qin Yining's plan was feasible. However, they also knew that Pang Xiao valued Qin Yining very much. He would never allow Qin Yining to take risks for him. As aides, they were not in a position to persuade him. Everything had to be approved by Pang Xiao. Pang Xiao pondered for a long time and carefully considered the situation in the capital. Finally, he reluctantly nodded and said, "All right, then bring more people." "That's not necessary. We didn't bring many people back. I'll bring the servant girls and a few guards." "No, you can only leave a few people for me. You can bring the rest. This is the capital. Even if I bring a few dozen people with me, if something really happens, can they fight 1 against 100? Pang Xiao was speechless. How many soldiers were there around the capital? Not to mention a few dozen people. Even if there were a few hundred or a few thousand people, if Li Qiqian really wanted to attack, they couldn't do anything. That was why Pang Xiao often complained about his incompetence. Seeing Pang Xiao's annoyance, Qin Yining wanted to persuade him, but it wasn't good to say too much in front of Xie Yu and Su Weiji. He only patted the back of Pang Xiao's hand to comfort him. "Don't worry, I promise it'll be fine. Send people outside the city to pay attention to the movements in the city. When the time is right, you can appear." Pang Xiao pursed his lips. After a long time, he said, "It's my incompetence. What is Wang Yi saying? Wang Yi and I came here to fight side by side. If I wanted peace, wouldn't it be better for me to hide somewhere along the way?" Xie Yu sighed and also persuaded, "Wang Fei is right. Wang Yi, Wang Fei is thinking for you. Don't disappoint her." "Yes, Wang Fei is righteous. I also admire her." Su Weiji also raised his hands. Qin Yining quickly waved his hand. "Sirs, please don't be like this." Mu Jinghu, who had been listening at the side, said, "Don't worry. I'll accompany Wang Fei into the city." Pang Xiao looked at Mu Jinghu and nodded heavily, saying, "With you here, I can rest assured." Mu Jinghu smiled and said, "I'll say the same thing. I can't promise anything else, but I can guarantee Wang Fei's life." Pang Xiao nodded. Although he agreed to Qin Yining's suggestion, he was already prepared for the worst. After the plan was set, Xie Yu asked, "When does Wang Fei plan to leave?" "We'll leave tomorrow. The earlier we finish this, the better the Wang residence can be reorganized." When they left the capital, Qin Yining brought his family with him. They thought they would never come back. The servants in the residence had all been dismissed. The residence had been empty for so long. They didn't know what it was like. After everyone finished discussing, Pang Xiao went to pick out 20 Jinghu Wei. Add Bing Tang and Ji Yan. Bring Mu Tu as well. Qin Yining smiled and nodded. "Don't worry. I'll act according to the situation. There won't be any danger." What could Pang Xiao say? Just as Qin Yining said, she was his comrade who fought side by side. She wasn't someone who hid under his wings and wanted him to protect her. The next morning, Qin Yining took the Jinghu Wei that Pang Xiao had chosen and left the country estate in a carriage. Pang Xiao, Xie Yu, Su Weiji, Huzi, and the remaining people temporarily stayed in the country estate. Pang Xiao made arrangements for them and ordered them to take turns to monitor the situation in the city and report promptly. If anything happened, he would be able to arrive in time. The ground in the north was still covered in snow during the first month. This year's snow was heavier than previous years. The road was very difficult to walk on. They could have arrived in 2 days if they were faster, but they walked for 3 days. When they arrived at the city gates, it was already 9:15 on the 24th. At this time, the city gates were already closed, and there was a curfew in the city. Qin Yining frowned and said, "We came back at the wrong time." "That's right. It's all because the road is difficult to walk on." "Wang Fei, are we still going to set up camp in the wilderness?" Qin Yining thought about it and said, There's no need for that. Even though there's a curfew in the city, the curfew depends on the person. I'm a Wang Fei, so we should take advantage of my status for once." As he said this, he turned around and ordered the Jinghu Wei named Tang Xiao, "Xiao Tang, go to the sentry post and see what kind of person is on duty at the city gate today." Hearing this, Tang Xiao immediately nodded and urged the horse towards the city gate. Qin Yining sat in the carriage and looked at the situation in front of the city gate in the distance. Tang Xiao raised her head and said a few words to the people above. Then she urged the horse back and reported, "Wang Fei, the person on duty at the city gate today, is surnamed Gong. He was a soldier under Wang Yi for 2 years and has been promoted to the rank of commander." Qin Yining smiled and said, "Your family's Wang Yi really has a lot of connections. It's good. Take this and tell him that His Highness's family is on their way back and has been delayed for too long. It wasn't easy for them to reach the city gate, but it's already this time. Ask him if he can make an exception and open the city gate to let us in." As he said this, he handed Tang Xiao a round jade pendant with long tassels hanging from it. It was a sword tassel. Chapter 903. Seeing Tang Xiao bring Pang Zhao's sword to the city gate, Ji Yun and Bing Tang held their breaths. Ji Yun whispered, "Wang Fei, will Gong Zongqi make an exception and open the city gate?" "It's hard to say." Qin Yining smiled. "It's not like we have to enter the city immediately, but since we're in the middle of the night, we might as well try." Bing Tang said, "If that person remembers Wang Ye's old friendship, he will definitely open the gate." "Not necessarily." Qin Yining said, "It depends on whether that person has an upright and plain-spoken personality or a smooth and sly personality. I had Bing Tang bring the sword overnight because I wanted to use Wang Ye's token to impress anyone. I just heard that Gong Zongqi was once under Wang Ye's command, so it was easier for him to identify him. Otherwise, there would be other ways to prove his identity. Whether or not he remembers their old friendship, as long as the other party is smooth and sly enough, he will let us in. After all, no one wants to offend Wang Yi, right? It's just a matter of turning around and reporting a few things to the higher-ups." So Wang Fei predicted that even if he was willing to open the gate, he would turn around and report it? "That's right. We came back in an open and above-board manner, not to commit crimes. We just came back a little late and arrived at this hour, so we asked them to make an exception for us." "So what kind of people are the curfews restricting?" "There's so many brothels in the capital. If the curfew was really banned, wouldn't those brothels close down?" Bing Tang and Ji Yun looked at each other. They had to admit that Qin Yining was speaking the truth. Whether it was in the Dian dynasty or the Dezhou dynasty, some laws only restricted the ordinary people who had no special privileges. People like Wang Yi and Wang Fei, who didn't use their status to suppress others, were in the minority. Just as they were talking, there was a sound from the city gate. Soon, Tang Xiao came back with a tall and muscular middle-aged man. "Gongwen greets Wang Fei." Qin Yining lifted the curtain and said with a smile, "No need for formalities, Commander Gong. Our group originally planned to return before the curfew, but the road was blocked by ice and snow, and we were traveling south. No matter how fast we rushed, we were still too late. I have no choice but to ask Commander Gong if you can make an exception and allow us to enter the city. Otherwise, it would be really hard to endure the cold weather." Gong Zongqi smiled and said, "If it was someone else, it would be impossible, but Princess Consort is an exception. Wang Yi is loyal to the country, and Wang Fei is a husband and wife. Both are pillars of the Zhou. It's just a small matter like opening the city gates. Wang Fei, please follow this lowly official." "You flatter me. Sorry for making things difficult for you." "It's nothing." As the two of them spoke, the carriage and the procession slowly moved forward. Gong Zongqi followed beside the carriage and smiled as he chatted with Qin Yining. He then asked, "Why isn't Wang Yi with the princess consort?" Qin Yining pretended to be surprised and said, "Could it be that Wang Yi hasn't returned to the capital yet?" Gong Zongqi was stunned for a moment before he smiled and said, "Not yet." Qin Yining nodded and said, I received a letter from Wang Yi saying that your majesty ordered us to return to the capital. Thus, I hurriedly brought everyone and set off. If Wang Yi hasn't arrived yet, he should be arriving soon. I see. Wang Yi and Princess Consort came separately. That's right. Qin Yining sighed with a worried expression. However, he didn't say anything else. At this time, the group of people had already arrived at the city gates. Gong Zongqi gave the order, and someone opened the heavy gates halfway. Qin Yining's carriage and the procession smoothly entered the city gates. Qin Yining got out of the carriage and thanked Gong Zongqi again. Gong Zongqi waved his hand and smiled. Princess Consort, don't be like this. There's a curfew in the city now. It's more important for you to return to the prince's residence. Many thanks, Zongqi. The group of people left the city gates and headed towards the center of the city. Gong Zongqi watched as Qin Yining's procession walked away and then turned to report to his superiors. Prince Zhongshuan's consort had returned to the capital, and Wang Yi would arrive soon. Even though he had opened the gates for convenience, he still had to report to his superiors. The streets of the capital were especially quiet at night. The sound of wheels and horse hooves sounded crisp in such a quiet environment. Qin Yining temporarily closed his eyes to rest. They had returned to the prince's residence and had to tidy up before they could rest. He didn't know what the prince's residence had become without anyone taking care of it for so long. Seeing Qin Yining close his eyes to rest, Bing Tang and Ji Yun did not make a sound. They helped Qin Yining tighten his dark blue cloak, and then the two of them also went to sleep. There was still some distance from the city gates to the prince's residence. Qin Yining had been on the carriage for such a long time and was already tired. Perhaps it was because she felt at ease after entering the city. She unconsciously became drowsy. Her head rested against the wall of the carriage as she dozed off. The silver butterfly earrings on her ears swayed as the carriage moved and rubbed against her white jade neck. At this time, a wave of noise suddenly came from the quiet street. Several young masters dressed in brocade and jade clothing were walking on the quiet street with their arms around each other's shoulders. It was such a cold day, but their faces were flushed and their bodies were steaming. When they spoke, their tongues were thick and their words were slurred. It was clear that these people were slightly drunk. The new person in the front row of Yuhua Lu is a great beauty. Burp, if you don't believe me, you'll know when you get there. The leader of the group, a young man wearing a black sable fur collar and a cloud brocade cloak, pointed in the direction of Yuhua Lu and said with drunken eyes, "Let me tell you, when that young lady smiles, half your bones will melt." Ha! Ninth young master only knows how to boast. Hey, you don't believe me? Burp. The young man called Ninth young master gave a long burp and pointed at the corner. You'll know when you get there. If your bones don't melt, I'll ask someone to beat you until you melt. Ha ha ha. The group of young masters laughed unscrupulously. On the quiet street, their laughter was especially wanton. Just as these people turned the corner, they suddenly saw a carriage slowly approaching. Beside the carriage were a dozen or so men. There were no signs on the carriage. Looking at the frame, it was just an ordinary carriage with a flat head. There was an infuriating wind lantern hanging on the carriage that flickered and flickered. It was obvious that the group was of ordinary birth. Ninth young master narrowed his eyes and pointed at Qin Yining's carriage and laughed. Huh, there's still a carriage on the street at this time? Ninth young master took 2 steps forward and almost tripped over his left foot. However, he didn't care at all and walked toward the carriage with swaying steps. The coachman and the ferocious tiger guards had already noticed these drunken playboys. Seeing that the well-dressed young man dared to bump into the front of the carriage and was about to be trampled under the wheels, the coachman quickly pulled the reins to stop the carriage. The carriage shook. Qin Yining opened his eyes in a daze and was still in a daze. What's wrong? She curiously lifted the curtain and looked outside. Ninth young master and his group had already gathered in front of the carriage. Seeing the carriage come to a stop, the thick, dark blue curtain was suddenly lifted up. Borrowing the light from the wind lantern hanging on the carriage, he saw an exquisite little face that seemed to be carved out of sculpture. Oh my, this is really... The young masters behind ninth young master were stunned. Ninth young master's eyes lit up, and he hurried forward, breathing quickly. Qin Yining was slightly sober by the cold wind. Seeing the situation outside, he lowered the curtain. He softly asked Mu Jinghu outside the window, "What's going on?" Mu Jinghu said, "Nothing. It's because we met a group of drunkards." "Young lady." Ninth young master was about to move closer to the carriage door. However, the Jinghu Wei immediately surrounded the carriage. The men's tall and sturdy bodies were like a wall, keeping the young masters outside. Ninth young master couldn't help but get angry. "Why? Young lady, are you not going to let others see you? Why don't you try to rope in your old customers when you're doing business?" Qin Yining frowned. He didn't want to bother with this person's vulgar words. In the capital, the Jinghu Wei didn't dare to act rashly without Qin Yining's instructions. However, they were already angry at the group of young masters' impudence. All of them stood upright and protected the carriage with their iron-like bodies. Ninth young master kicked Jinghu Wei's calf. Jinghu Wei didn't move at all, but he almost fell down. "Young lady, which family are you from? You dare to walk on the streets in the middle of the night? Do you think you're so great with so many people protecting you? You have to understand the rules of doing business if you're in the flesh business. Are you going to never do business with me in the future? You didn't even greet me. You're too indecent." Qin Yining couldn't help but sneer when he heard the drunkard's words from inside the carriage. Outside the carriage, Mu Jinghu couldn't take it anymore and reprimanded, "Don't spout nonsense." "Nonsense? She was brought out of the building at this hour. Do you think she's a chaste woman?" The group of young masters heard ninth young master's arrogant words. Although their brains were numb from drinking too much, they still knew their limits. Someone pulled ninth young master and said, "Don't be like this. What if she's the family of one of the court officials?" "Impossible," ninth young master said drunkenly. "Do you think it's so easy to meet such a beauty? I've seen many girls in the red light streets of the capital, but I've never seen such a beautiful one. In the past, it was said that the Prince Zhongshuan's consort was a beauty. However, didn't that woman go to look for the Prince Zhongshuan? How could the person who was brought here in the middle of the night be the princess consort? Don't make me laugh my teeth off." His words were getting more and more offensive. Qin Yining said to Mu Jinghu, who was outside the window, "Young Master Mu, find out who he is." Mu Jinghu asked, "Who are you? How dare you be so shameless and impudent?" "Who am I? Huh? Is there anyone who doesn't recognize me?" Ninth young master laughed loudly, as if he had encountered the most interesting thing in the world. Ninth young master had never lacked people who flattered him. He immediately stood out and said, "You have eyes but fail to recognize MT Tai. This is ninth young master of the Chong public house." Qin Yining heard everything from inside the carriage. Her eyes lit up when she heard the words Chong public house. Chapter 904. The Jinghu Wei had long disliked these young masters who were full of filthy words. If not for Qin Yining's orders, how could they have just stood there and tolerated them? Now that they heard Qin Yining's voice, before Mu Jinghu could do anything, the Jinghu Wei had already taken action. These men, who had gone to the battlefield to kill their enemies, were fearless when facing an enemy, let alone these hedonistic young masters who spent their days indulging in debauchery and debauchery. Before the ninth young master could make a single move, Tang Xiu had already lifted him up by the collar like a chicken. What are you doing? Let me go, let me go." Ninth young master's legs kicked wildly and his hands clawed wildly. Suddenly being captured, he was already half sober. Because Qin Yining had only ordered for him to be captured, the other young masters behind him were all fine. Seeing that ninth young master had been captured, everyone was shocked and wanted to rush forward to save him. However, when they saw that the Jinghu Wei were all tall and strong and were glaring at them covetously, they knew that they did not have the ability and did not dare to step forward. They only dared to gather their courage and shout, "Who are you? Let go of ninth young master." You probably didn't hear clearly. This is the youngest son in the Chong public house that the High Duke dotes on the most. If you dare to touch a strand of his hair today, the High Duke will skin you alive tomorrow. That's right, let him go. Send someone over, quickly. Some people shouted, while others were smarter. Perhaps because they were not drunk, they turned around to report. Although Ninth Young Master was slightly flustered, there was a limit to his fear. When he saw his own people running to report, he stopped panicking and shouted, "You stinky woman! How dare you order people to capture this young master? When my father brings people over, none of you will be able to escape. If you know what's good for you, come out and kowtow 3 times to this young master. Serve this young master well tonight. When this young master is satisfied, I can consider sparing your life. Otherwise, slap." The shouting was replaced by a loud slap. Ninth Young Master's face was slapped to one side. Mu Jinghu said coldly, "How dare you use filthy words to take liberties with Princess Consort Zhongshun? You must be tired of living." What did he say? Ninth Young Master's ears were buzzing, and he could not hear a single word clearly. On the other side, the foppish young masters who came with him were also stunned. Did we hear wrongly? That person just now said Prince Zhongshuan's consort? Yep, it seems to be true. The group was at a loss. Qin Yining lifted the curtain of the carriage. Her bright face looked even more gentle and beautiful under the lamplight. She looked at Ninth Young Master, then looked at the group of foolish young masters, and said in a deep voice, "Don't worry. Someone wants to report?" Just in time. "Go and tell Duke Changhua that his youngest son spoke rudely and took liberties with the loyal Qin Wang Fei. If he wants her, he could go to the Wang Fu to get her." After saying so, ninth of the Jinghu of Zong of Yang's Yi, Jinghu Wei's men carried Ninth Young Master into a carriage at the back and stuffed him inside. They were annoyed by his noise and even used a rag to gag him. The wheels creaked as they rolled over the black brick road and gradually moved further away. The group of hedonistic sons looked at each other with worried expressions. "What should we do? She really seems to be Prince Zhongshuan's wife. Are you sure? Didn't they say she was in the south?" "I'm sure. I've seen that face before. Even your bones will turn soft when you smile. But this person is too. She's married to a fiend. She's become a yiksha. She only took advantage of him verbally. Why did she start yelling about killing him? Let's not talk about these useless things. Let's think about what to do first. What to do? What else can we do? I don't have a choice. I can only tell Prince Zhongshuan's residence." The group of heirs walked away while discussing. Tang Xiao, who stayed at the corner of the street to listen in on the situation, heard all these people's movements. Only then did she catch up with Qin Yining's carriage. "Princess Consort, they've gone to report. Good. You've worked hard." Qin Yining lifted the carriage curtain and said, "This can't be called hard work. But Princess Consort, this Prince Zhongshuan's residence is an old official of Beiji. After the present emperor overthrew him, he didn't touch a hair on this old official's head and still kept his title of duke. The Shang family of Prince Zhongshuan has a lot of influence among the old officials of Beiji. If we really offend them, we may offend the entire Beiji faction in the future." Hearing this, Qin Yining nodded and said with a smile, "I know." Tang Xiao knew that Qin Yining would have a plan. Before they set off, Wang Yi had specifically ordered them to listen to Princess Consort's arrangements. Therefore, Tang Xiao didn't say more. They returned to the Wang Fu bestowed by the emperor and knocked on the door. The old servant who had been left behind to watch the night watch was still in disbelief. "Princess Consort has really returned?" "Yes. You've worked hard watching the house these days," Qin Yining said with a smile. It's not hard. This residence is large, and it's not good for me to walk around. I've just stayed in the room. I haven't seen anyone come in these days." This old servant was wondering when Wang Yi would be sent back to Jing. "I hadn't thought that Princess Consort would come back." Qin Yining smiled and nodded. The group entered the Fu. When they had left Jing, Qin Yining had been forced out of the Wang Fu by the Yao clan. After that, she had been busy with the funeral and had not been able to attend to the matters of the Wang Fu. While she had safely sent Yao Qinggu, his wife, and the Yao clan away, Yao Qinggu had arranged everything in the Wang Fu himself. The large residence that had been bestowed by the emperor to the Wang Fu was now empty and dusty. Yao Qinggu had not left anyone to watch the house. He had only left a gatekeeper. It seemed that he had expected that she would not return. Qin Yining smiled and said, "The Wang Fu is such a large residence. We have a limited number of people. Why don't we all stay in the outer courtyard? 1, it's easier to clean up. 2, we could take care of each other when we gather." Even though it was against the rules, they had stayed in the same inn before. However, they had all stayed in the outer courtyard. They were not in the same side courtyard, so it was not a big deal. The Jinghu Wei naturally had no objections. They smiled and agreed. The 20 or so young men rolled up their sleeves and began to tidy up in full swing. They were good at killing enemies on the battlefield. They were also good at other things. Qin Yining and Ji Yun carried the bags into Pang Zhao's study in the outer courtyard. She had planned to stay here for the time being. Bing Tang went to instruct the group of uncouth men to do their work. Soon, the house was mostly cleaned up. Bing Tang took the key to the storeroom and brought some people to retrieve the bedding. Everyone was assigned rooms and arranged for night watch shifts. Then, they all went to rest. Mu Jinghu was arranged to stay in a side room in the courtyard of the study. Before going to bed, Mu Jinghu lifted Jiu Gongzi, who was tied up and pouting, and said, "Should we lock him up first? Untie him. There's no need to gag his mouth." Mu Jinghu raised his eyebrows and immediately untied Jiu Gongzi. Jiu Gongzi immediately threw away the rag in his mouth and spat twice. He glared angrily at Qin Yining. "You evil bitch, let me go." Qin Yining stood on the steps in front of the study. The gentle light in the room shone from behind her and covered her body with a warm halo. Jiu Gongzi could not see Qin Yining's expression, but he heard her gentle voice say something that almost angered him to death. "Since you don't know what's good for you, I'll just tie you up." Mu Jinghu laughed and said, "That's easy." As he spoke, he tied Jiu Gongzi's arms behind his back and tied him up in a few moves. Jiu Gongzi shouted angrily, "Shoo!" Qin Yining raised a finger and said, "If you scold me again, I'll gag your mouth too. How dare you? Didn't you see whether I dared or not? Wang Yi and I were ordered to return to the capital. We had just entered the city when I was insulted by your filthy words. How will your majesty deal with this matter?" Jiu Gongzi gritted his teeth. He did not know how your majesty would deal with this matter, but Pang Xiao was famous for being a fan of his wife. He was also very protective of his children. His wife had been molested by him. How could he let it go? Thinking of this, Jiu Gongzi finally controlled his temper. It was not a bad thing to suffer less before his family came looking for him. Qin Yining laughed and said, "Looks like you're not stupid." Mu Jinghu laughed and said, "You should rest." As he spoke, he picked up Jiu Gongzi and walked out. At the same time, he did not forget to pout his mouth and even cover his eyes. Qin Yining could not help but laugh when he saw Mu Jinghu being so careful. Jiu Gongzi was not a powerful person. Even if he was untied, he might not be able to leave the prince's mansion. However, it was better to be safe than sorry. This person was still useful to her, so there was nothing wrong with being careful. After returning to the inner room of the study, Qin Yining rested on the heated Kong bed by the window that Pang Xiao often used to read. Bing Tang and Ji Yun went to find firewood and started to burn the heated Kong bed. The heated Kong beds in the north were the favorite of people like Qin Yining, who had a cold constitution. The three of them were not particular about it. The three of them huddled together and slept well that night. The next morning, Qin Yining woke up early. After washing up, she sat in front of the table and let Bing Tang help to comb her hair. Comb it into a simple round bun and pin it with a silver hairpin. Just wear the stone green robe that you were wearing when you came back. The plainer, the better. I know. Don't worry, princess consort. If we're going to put on an act, we have to go all the way. That's exactly what I meant. Ji Yin came in from outside and put down the plain porridge and side dishes on the tray. She said with a smile, "Newbie will go and buy some servant girls today. This food is very lifeless right now. It needs more people to liven things up." The little booklet in my dowry has the addresses of the old people that our family used to hire starting from the 10th page. Let's consider hiring them first. 1. We will be familiar with each other, and it will be easy to use them. 2. We were in a rush to send them away, and did not make proper arrangements for them. If they're willing to come back and work, we can subsidize them. Yes, I know that Wang Fei is the most soft-hearted. Ji Yun smiled. At this time, Tang Xiu's voice came from outside the door. Wang Fei, Changwa Gong Fu has sent a visiting card. So fast? It seems that idiot really is liked by Changwa Gong. Qin Yining let Tang Xiu bring the visiting card in. The person who sent the card was not Changwa Gong, but the foreign of Changwa Gong. The visiting card politely stated that she would come to the Wang Fu to visit this afternoon. She did not know if she had the time to meet. If she could not, she would send the visiting card tomorrow. Such politeness and sincerity. How could Qin Yining not accept? Chapter 905. Tang Xiu accepted the order with a smile and quickly went to send the reply. Ji Yun then asked, "What does Wang Fei plan to do?" Duke Changhua is an old official from Beiji Civil Court. Your Majesty didn't even touch a hair of Duke Changhua. If something goes wrong, I'm afraid Duke Changhua will be angry and unite with the old officials of Beiji to deal with us. I'm afraid it won't be good. If it was a few years ago, Duke Changhua might have done that. But the situation in the court is different now. Not to mention the distant past. In the eyes of outsiders, I'm afraid my father is an example. Those factions in the court, whether it's the old officials of Beiji or the aristocratic families, saw the mainstay of the dying court like the surrendered officials end up like this. Your Majesty isn't even willing to give him a posthumous honor. Could it be they still don't understand? You mean Duke Changhua chose to keep a low profile and suffer this loss? Qin Yining slowly nodded. Not to mention that we captured his youngest son. Even if it was his legitimate son or legitimate grandson, he wouldn't dare to do anything at this juncture. Qin Yining couldn't help but laugh when he said this. You can know from the invitation sent by Duke Chang was foreign. Ji Yun stilled. That's true. This servant is thinking too much. Qin Yining shook his head and pulled Ji Yun's hand, saying with a smile, "You are thinking for me. I understand." The two looked at each other and smiled. Qin Yining smiled and said, "When you go out these days, pay attention to the situation in the court. There are some things that we don't know outside." Yes, this servant will pay attention. After everything was arranged, Qin Yining and Bing Tang stayed in the room to do needlework. She made a list and prepared to buy some elegant, soft, and comfortable hang silk and cocoon silk to make clothes for Zhao Gur and Han Gur. The children weren't by her side, but they were growing every day in her mind. She imagined how they would look when they grew up. Even if she didn't have a chance to let them wear it in the future, she entrusted her heart to it. Time passed quickly. In the afternoon, Qin Yining rested for a while. Just as she finished washing up, Ji Yun reported from outside. Wang Fei, Duchess of Changhua, requests an audience. She is in the reception pavilion right now. Got it. Qin Yining stood up. Both of you come with me. Yes. Bing Tang and Ji Yun answered in unison. Bing Tang asked, "Princess, don't you need to change your clothes?" Qin Yining lowered her head to look at herself. She was dressed in a bluish-green robe and a long white dress. The only jewelry she was wearing was a white jade bracelet on her wrist and a silver hairpin to hold her hair in place. Qin Yining thought for a moment, then put on a cloak made of silk with a sable fur collar and lotus petals that she rarely wore. The silk on this cloak was exquisite and the color was simple and elegant. The sable fur on the shoulders was black and bright. Because she liked it too much, Qin Yining couldn't bear to wear it. Her casual attire, with such a precious cloak, even if she didn't wear heavy makeup, didn't adorn it with gold hairpins and pearls, she still looked noble. She wouldn't lose her status as Prince Zhongshuan's consort. Qin Yining took the two maidservants to the corridor. As she walked, she thought about what might happen next. When she arrived at the flower hall, she had already prepared her mood and entered the door with no expression on her face. She saw a plump matron over 60 years of age. She was wearing a peacock blue cloak with large sleeves. She wore a jade hairpin in her hair, and her white hair was neatly tied up. Her appearance was noble and elegant. Even though it was spring and autumn, it could be seen that she was a gentle matron of good birth. Behind her was an elderly mama and a young daughter-in-law. Other than that, there was no one else. Seeing Qin Yining come in, the Duke Foreign of Changhua stood. Her gaze landed on Qin Yining's body with shock. However, her gaze was very polite and restrained. There was no rudeness, and it did not give people a feeling of discomfort. Qin Yining gave a faint smile. "This is the Duke Foreign of Changhua. Please sit." I don't dare." The Duke Foreign of Changhua bowed and said, "In terms of honor, it is this old one who should pay respects to Wang Fei." "What is this?" "The Duke Foreign of Changhua is a virtue and prestige. You are also an elder. This junior cannot afford your courtesy." Qin Yining moved to the side to avoid her courtesy. She used her hands to support the other and modestly allowed the other to sit. She turned and ordered, "Serve good tea." "Yes." Ji Yin quickly went to prepare. A short while later, she came back with a blue and white covered bowl. The Duke Foreign of Changhua saw that Qin Yining treated guests warmly and did not have the domineering air she had imagined. She couldn't help but hate Shang Zhihua even more. Shang Zhihua was the son of the Duke Foreign of Changhua when she was over 40 years old. For this son, she almost lost half her life. She finally managed to raise him safely. But who would have thought that he was a playboy who did not have any ambition? Usually, he drank wine with women, gambled, and fought with crickets and cocks. She had already broken many of his rattan vines. He liked Biaomei and was unhappy with his wife because of Biaomei. In order to make him change, she had reluctantly become an evil mother-in-law and allowed Biaomei to enter the family as a concubine. But she hadn't thought that after he got the person, he would start to act up again after a few days. Putting aside the fact that he was lenient in the red light district, this time he actually dared to take liberties with Pang Zhishi's fiend's wife in public. Seeing her today, the Duke Foreign of Changhua Foreign had to admit that the woman in front of her was so beautiful that even a woman like her couldn't help but want to take a few more glances. 40 to 50 years ago, her appearance was considered dignified when she was young, but it was not even 1/10 of her. This was a woman who could make men fall head over heels for her. That was why she was able to charm Prince Zhongshuan to the point that he dared to go against the imperial edict for her. Now, even her foolish son had fallen for it. The Duke Foreign of Changhua Foreign sighed in her heart. Although she felt a bit helpless, she did not have any resentment towards Qin Yining. Was it wrong for a woman to be born with a beautiful appearance? There were many men who had seen Qin Yining. Not everyone was like her good-for-nothing son who would take liberties with Biaomei in public. In the end, it was her son who was disappointing. If she did not use this chance to properly punish the boy and use this chance to turn him around, who knew what kind of disaster he would cause in the future? Therefore, this time, the Duke Foreign of Changhua Foreign came to beg for leniency. She sincerely apologized and reconciled. She did not care what the Duke Foreign of Changhua Foreign was thinking. In any case, as a mother, she already regretted spoiling her youngest son. "Wang Fei, this old one came today for my good-for-nothing son. I know that he offended Wang Fei this time. Everything is his fault. I did not teach him well. It is my dereliction of duty as a mother. I sincerely apologize to you." The Duke Foreign of Changhua Foreign stood up and curtsied. The old mama and daughter-in-law behind the Duke Foreign of Changhua Foreign also curtsied. Qin Yining quickly stood up and stopped her from curtsying. He helped her sit down again and said faintly, "I understand Duke Foreign of Changhua Foreign's motherly heart." The Duke Foreign of Changhua Foreign sat back in her previous position. Seeing Qin Yining's expressionless face, she knew that her move of family affection had not worked. Her apology was sincere, but it was also part of her plan to move the other. She did not expect this Wang Fei to be so steady and not be moved by external matters when she was just 20 years old. The Duke Foreign of Changhua Foreign thought of what the Duke Foreign of Changhua Foreign had said before she left. The daughter of Wise Pan and is not an ordinary woman. Interacting with her is different from interacting with ordinary women. After you go, you only need to sincerely apologize. Do not play any tricks. Right now, we are already treading on thin ice. If you want little Jiao'er's life, you have to go along with her. The Duke Foreign of Chang Guo Foreign's heart shook. She was already regretting her actions just now. She was used to rolling around in the inner chambers and would inadvertently use her usual moves. Wang Fei, please calm down. The Duke Foreign of Chang Guo Foreign said urgently, "It is this old one's fault for not teaching my son well. That is why he is so lawless. Wang Fei is the daughter of a proper official's family. Your status is noble. How can you allow that evil creature to insult you? No matter what, it's all that evil creature's fault. Wang Fei can capture him, but I ask Wang Fei to punish him harshly. Once you've vented your anger, please allow this old one to bring him home and discipline him strictly." Qin Yining looked at the Duke Foreign of Chang Guo Foreign's fearful appearance for her son and could not bear it. If she was a domineering and unreasonable person, she had many ways to teach them a lesson today and achieve her goal at the same time. But facing this kind of woman, she could not bear to carry out those plans. "Forget it," Qin Yining said. "The Duke Foreign of Chang Guo Foreign is innocent in the end. As the saying goes, it is the father's fault for not teaching. Your son is your youngest son, but this is a patriarchal world. I think that even if the Duke Foreign of Chang Guo Foreign wants to teach your son well, the world will not allow your son to stay with a woman like you all day." When he said this, the Duke Foreign of Chang Guo Foreign's heart ached and her tears almost fell. In the end, women understood women the best. Qin Yining's words were exactly what she was troubled about. Qin Yining smiled. "Today, I do not want to trouble you. The fault for not teaching him well is on the Duke Foreign of Chang Guo Foreign. I want to have a secret talk with the Duke Foreign of Chang Guo Foreign. If the Duke Foreign can pass on the message and arrange it properly, your son's matter will be easy to handle. On the other hand, if the Duke Foreign of Chang Guo Foreign could not do it and spread the news, the ninth young master's ending would be uncertain, since it was a serious crime to take liberties with the Wang Fei. Even if Qin Yining killed him, the Duke Foreign of Chang Guo Foreign could not do anything to her because of the Pang Shao." The Duke Foreign of Chang Guo Foreign's heart beat rapidly as she looked in shock at Qin Yining. She could faintly smell a conspiracy. Looking at Qin Yining's bright face and her confident expression, the Duke Foreign of Chang Guo Foreign hesitated for a moment before nodding. "All right, this old one will definitely pass on the message and guarantee that the people around me will not leak the news. The Duke Foreign of Chang Guo Foreign is a smart person. This way, everyone will benefit. If the Duke Foreign agrees, I will tell you how to arrange the meeting." "Yes." The Duke Foreign of Chang Guo Foreign stood and bowed, saying, "Since this is the case, this old one will bid farewell. There is no order in the circle. For offending the Wang Fei, I hope that Wang Fei will give him 2 more days." Qin Yining understood that the Duke Foreign of Chang Guo Foreign was afraid that she would kill the 9th young master before they could come to a conclusion. Chapter 906. After sending off Duke Chang's wife, Ji Yun and Bing Tang served Qin Yining back to his room to rest. In the evening, Tang Xiu came back and said, "Princess Consort, someone from Duke Chang's residence has sent word that Duke Chang has agreed to your request." Upon hearing this, Qin Yining's stern expression relaxed, and he quietly let out a long sigh of relief. As long as Changwood Duke nodded his head, the matter would be more than halfway done. The next day, Mu Jinghu personally led Duke Chang to the prince's residence without being noticed. Duke Chang did not expect Qin Yining to have such a skilled person by his side. He also did not expect this chivalrous person to not bring him through the door, but over the wall. He was so shocked that he broke out in a cold sweat. When he looked at Qin Yining again, his gaze was different. It was a pity that such a person was a woman who could do things so boldly and decisively, and her methods were not restrained by trifles. Qin Yining and Duke Chang had a secret conversation for 4 hours. In the dead of the night, Mu Jinghu silently sent Duke Chang back. Other than Qin Yining and Duke Chang, no one knew what they talked about. Other than the 2 of them and Mu Jinghu, no one else knew that Duke Chang had come to the prince's residence. Even Duke Chang's wife, who was closest to Duke Chang, did not know. She was still anxious about her youngest son. The next day, Qin Yining asked Tang Xiu to bring out Jiu Gongzi, who had been locked up for 2 days. After being tied up for 2 days without eating or drinking, Jiu Gongzi was half dead. Once he saw Qin Yining, his eyes were filled with hatred. Mu Jinghu said, "Do you know your mistake?" Jiu Gongzi gritted his teeth and straightened his neck. He wanted to shout, but he did not have the strength. Secondly, he was afraid of the person in front of him. After a long while, he squeezed out, "I did nothing wrong. What did I do wrong? Think about it. Which decent woman would go out in a carriage in the middle of the night? You brought this upon yourselves. I was just going to have a drink with a courtesan and met you on the way. How would I know that a princess consort would go out in the middle of the night? In the end, I was captured by you guys. I was wronged." As ninth young master spoke, tears welled up in his eyes. Qin Yining was amused by his shameless words. He took 2 steps forward and stood in front of the person sitting on the ground. He said condescendingly, "It's my freedom whether I want to walk at night or not. I walked at night. Is that the reason for your rude remarks? Whether or not I am willing to walk at night, and whether or not you behave properly, are 2 different things. Are you going to push all the blame onto others? You met me this time. I have a lot of people around me, so I didn't let you take advantage of me. But what if it was a girl from an ordinary family?" Qin Yining didn't want to waste any more time with this person. He said, "Beat him 10 times with the plank and send him back to his father." Yes, Tang Xiu had already received Qin Yining's instructions. She strode over with a wooden plank in her hand. Ninth young master was so scared that his face turned pale. He said, "How dare you? You vicious whore, how dare you hit me? My father is the Duke of Changhua. If you hit me, my father won't let you off. You still haven't cleaned your mouth at a time like this? Beat him." Qin Yining flicked his sleeves and went back into the house. Soon, the sound of the plank cracking and ninth young master's wailing could be heard from the courtyard. The 10 planks were quickly finished. Ninth young master didn't even have the energy to cry. He asked Tang Xiu to bring people to send him back to the Duke of Changhua with a wooden plank. Ji Yun and Bing Tang vented their anger and spat fiercely. "Serve him right. This kind of person should be taught a lesson. That's right. If we don't teach him a lesson now, who knows how many girls this bad guy will harm in the future." However, after scolding enough, the 2 of them were a little worried. After all, the Duke of Chonghua's status was there. Princess consort, will the Duke of Changhua fly into a rage out of humiliation or hold a grudge against you? Bing Tang asked worriedly. "Don't worry. I have my own arrangements. Right now, I have another matter for Tang Xiu to do. When Tang Xiu comes back, ask him to come over." "Yes." Bing Tang nodded seriously. Ji Yun smiled and said, "Princess consort, this servant has looked through the register you gave me. According to the address on it, I contacted many old people to come back. This morning, people have already come back to the residence one after another. However, there is still not enough people in the residence. Do you want to buy more?" Qin Yining thought for a moment and said with a smile, "There's no need. Just use the old people in the residence first. Pay attention to the purchasing matter first. If there are suitable young maidservants, just find a few will be enough." "Yes. Does Princess Consort plan to keep a few young maidservants by her side?" "That's right," Qin Yining said with a smile. "In the future, when our lives are stable, I will find you a Ru-Yi husband and marry you off in a grand manner. If you are willing, then you could be a steward's wife by my side. At that time, I will definitely not have enough maidservants by my side, so I am preparing in advance." Ji Yun's face immediately turned red. Looking at her, she really had a rosy face and peachy cheeks. Her appearance was outstanding. "Princess consort, don't talk nonsense." "How am I talking nonsense?" Qin Yining blinked innocently. "Men should get married when they are of age, and women should get married when they are of age. Don't tell me I will keep you as an old maid forever. At that time, I'm afraid you will hate me." Princess consort only knows how to talk nonsense. Ji Yun stomped her feet in embarrassment and turned to leave. When Qin Yining and Bing Tang saw this, they couldn't help but laugh. After laughing enough, Bing Tang asked, "Princess consort, our residence is so big. but not all of the old people from before can come back. I heard from Ji Yun that only about 20 of them were brought back. This way, the residence seems too empty. It's not a big deal. If the residence is empty, then let it continue to be empty. There is no need to renovate the mottled walls and tiles. Just maintain the current situation. Bing Tang didn't understand Qin Yining's intentions. Such a good residence bestowed by the emperor, but it was very old and gloomy. If outsiders saw it, they would probably gossip behind their backs and say that Prince Zhongshuan was lonely. Otherwise, how could the residence be so dilapidated? However, Bing Tang knew that since Qin Yining did this, he must have made arrangements, so she didn't continue to ask. Not long after, Tang Xiu came to see Qin Yining. Qin Yining had Ji Yun and Bing Tang stand guard outside the door. He whispered a few words into Tang Xiu's ear. Tang Xiu said in surprise, "Princess Consort, you mean to tell people about Wang Ye's deeds in a book?" "Yes," Qin Yining said with a smile. "When you go out these few days, observe carefully which places have the most people listening to storytellers and which storytellers are more popular. As for the content of the storytelling, we will tell them about the scenes of Wang Ye's battles." Tang Xiu's eyes lit up when she heard this. She nodded repeatedly. "This is good. This is good. Princess Consort, you don't know, but Wang Yi was really too mighty on the battlefield. Wang Yi led the troops like a god. He was always the first to charge and the last to retreat. Not to mention anything else, all the brothers in the army were very impressed by Wang Yi. Wang Yi was also very righteous towards his brothers. He never embezzled the provisions. Sometimes, when he was nervous, he would even supplement his own silver to pay his brothers. Tang Xiu clearly worshipped Pang Xiao. When she talked about Pang Xiao's great deeds, she couldn't stop talking. She was so enraptured that she was spilling beans. Qin Yining nodded repeatedly as he listened. He smiled and said, "What you said is very good. Also, there's the part where Wang Yi sacrificed himself to save the lives of the people. In addition, there's also the part where Wang Yi was extremely righteous and refused to massacre the people in the city. Tell all of these to the storytellers and teach them how to tell them in the most crowded places in the city." Qin Yining thought for a moment, then added, "It's not just about Wang Ye's past achievements. There's also the conflict between the Yuchi Yin and the Southern Yin Commandant Qi Shujia in the south this time. If Wang Yi didn't show up, I'm afraid that the Southern Yin Commandant would have already started a war." Tang Xiu blinked. Those who knew the inside story of the Southern Yin Commandant knew that it wasn't like what Qin Yining said. But with this kind of publicity, Wang Ye's reputation would become better and better. This wasn't a bad thing. Seeing that Tang Xiu understood, Qin Yining smiled and handed this matter over to her. He even said with a smile, "After you've made the arrangements, I'll go listen to the storytellers." "Wang Fei, do you still need to go listen to the storytellers? You've already seen Wang Ye's matter and recorded it in your heart. That won't stop me from going to join in the fun," Qin Yining said with a smile. Tang Xiu also smiled. She rubbed her palms together and went out to make the arrangements. Just as Tang Xiu was spending time contacting the storyteller, the news of the enmity between the Prince Zhongshuan's imperial consort and the Chang country duke's family had spread. Some people didn't believe it and felt that there was no meaning in the Chang country duke offending Qin Yining for no reason. However, Ninth Young Master was beaten with a plank and carried back to the Chang nation duke's residence. Many people had witnessed his miserable appearance. Other than this, there were also people who made up many versions of the story of the love and hate between Qin Yining and the Chang country duke's family. Through word of mouth, there were many versions of how the enmity between Qin Yining and the Chang country duke's Fu came to be. As a result, in just 3 to 5 days, the enmity between Qin Yining and the Chang country duke became the irreconcilable enmity between the Pang Xiao and the Chang country duke. The news was even spread quite well. Qin Yining was in the Fu. Hearing the news from various sources, he was in a very good mood and ate half a bowl of rice. Wang Fei, the tea houses in the city are all talking about Wang Ye's heroic deeds. He pacified the Dayan, fought the bandits, and quelled the Southern Yin rebellion. Right now, 8 out of 10 people were talking about Wang Ye's bravery and loyalty during their leisure time. Someone even made up a children's song, and the children are singing it in the streets and alleys. Tang Xiu smiled and said, "Right now, the storytellers are the most enthusiastic about talking about Wang Ye's campaigns. The level of excitement is not inferior to Three Kingdoms." Qin Yining laughed when he heard this. Then what have they been talking about recently? They were talking about how Wang Yi didn't use a single soldier to pacify the chaos in the south. The Yuqi Yin and Yuqi Shujia joined forces to rebel. They wanted to use the military to disrupt the Zhou, so they tried to sow discord between the court officials in an attempt to restore the Dian dynasty. In the end, their evil plan was seen through by Wang Yi. Wang Yi only used a little strategy, but the Yuqi Yin and Yuqi Shujia started to rebel. The Yuqi Yin even killed Yuqi Shujia, who had saved his life. Right now, the commoners are cursing the Yuqi Yin for being a good-for-nothing. Qin Yining nodded. Tang Xiu continued. In any case, Wang Ye's image of being both intelligent and courageous has already spread far and wide. Even children are fighting to pretend to be Wang Yi when they play house. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.